Hi, I'm John Carpenter, and you will see me in The Thing expanded documentary.
U.S. number 31 calling McMurdo. Urgent.
Come in. Over.
Did you notice anything strange about the dog? Anything at all?
Strange? No.
What the hell happened here? Looks like something buried under the ice.
What we're talking about here is an organism that imitates other life forms.
Somebody in this camp ain't what he appears to be.
Bennings was right there, Mac. I swear to God it had a hold of him.
Could have imitated 1,000,000 life forms on 1,000,000 planets.
There was one of those things out there trying to imitate him, Gary. We gotta burn the rest of them. Nobody trusts anybody now.
So how do we know who's human?
Do some kind of test, Doc?
We're gonna draw a little bit of everybody's blood.
You ain't tying me up.
Then I'll have to kill you, child.
You gotta be kidding.
We gotta bring this whole place right down into the ice. We're not getting out of here alive. But neither's that thing.
I'm most proud of this movie. I wouldn't change a frame of it.
We're gonna get a little bit crazy, wild and maybe even vulgar, if you please. It's after dark and we're gonna light it up. Got some fun in store for you, no tease. It's time for midnight sesh after dark. A little naughty, will hopefully make you chuckle, but we ain't trying to hurt nobody. So get ready quick on the double, cause it's time for midnight sesh after dark.
Tonight, the original Crow director talks some smack on the remake. We got a Sonic 3 trailer, a La Bamba remake announced, and a whole lot more. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, it's time. You're here. We're with you. So there we go. So hello, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome to the program. I am Tom Connors. We have with us Scribbles. How you doing, Scribe?
Doing all right. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all having a relaxing week ahead of hopefully for many of you, an extended weekend. So, and hello to everybody on the panel.
Hello.
Glad to have you here. We also have Price of Reason. That's the hello you just heard. How you doing, Price?
Good. What's up, man?
Just editing all day long, working on this. I've been just, oh man. Last few days, I've been diving deep. Like Eddie Murphy deep in Beverly Hills Cop 2 Undercover. No, deep into the Crow background of the various remakes that never came to be, the sequels, the new movie that's come out. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that stuff today. In fact, part of the video, part of what I'm working on in the video is part of our story today. If that makes sense, rewind it, reverse it, throw it together, figure it out. All I want to know is how Nick is doing, because hopefully I can make it to your show tonight. Otherwise, I'm going to be editing. I'm sorry.
Hey. Hi. What's up, Tom? Price, Scribe.
Here.
Yeah,
Hey,
obviously a trailer came out today and a remake was made that I'm still not forget for a long time. And I'm glad someone had the cojones to be consistent about why it should have never been made the entire time, speaking on behalf of the original director. So yeah, I'm definitely antsy to talk about it. And of course, the final episode of our Western month with True Grit today.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sure the older guys will be able to step in if I'm not able to make it, but do check that out after the show today. They'll be going live over on Nick's channel.
Oh, Alf is here too. Yeah.
Elf!
Sorry,
I got a mouthful. Welcome, Elf. You've been here for 25 months. How you been?
Gordon Shumway.
That's right. I see we got some wrenches out there working hard, like D-Bud and Daryl, and I think I saw Goddess of Women here earlier as well. We got some regulars filing in like Putin's Cat, Green Raptor, Snortopupus, Nicholas Horton's here, Amelia Clark's Squirrel Arm is here as well. I've been baggled is here. Alabama Wyatt. Bryant Barth is here. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk a little about, since Brian's here. That reminds me. Did you guys see that Francis Ford Coppola was talking about how he's like, fuck all this woke shit in movies. I made my movie unwoke.
I actually saw it, and I thought that maybe he was trying to appeal to another demographic. Maybe somebody told him, try to say you don't like woke stuff, and maybe that'll help you.
Well, he was saying it because some of his cast members have been canceled. Right? Like, that's the thing. So he's working. And Hollywood's been against this movie since the start.
For sure.
Maybe we will talk a little bit about it later if we get time to.
I have to wonder if it's good or not. I have a feeling like it's probably not going to be good, but I still want to see it. And it's not that I don't want it to be good. I just don't know that it will be.
I want it to be good because it's kind of is a middle finger to the industry. Because, Francis did it himself.
I really like Francis Ford Coppola as a director in the sense of in his prime, when you're thinking about The Godfather, The Godfather 2, even like Apocalypse Now, a few other movies. But I think that over the years, he's really lost his edge. And man, I don't know. It's not that I don't want it to be good, but I don't know. I'm trying to think the last time I saw a good Francis Ford Coppola movie.
It looks like just from the trailers and things that I've read, it looks like one of those things where it's like everybody and their brother signed up to do it because, of course, I'd want to work with Francis Ford Coppola. He's a legend, but the entire thing looks like
it looks good on the resume.
Self-indulgent mess. Yeah, it looks like a mess as far as a movie.
Even
so I
if
don't
it
know.
is a mess, they're gonna look at it because they know how things sound, and there is a little bit of that thing that goes on when you're playing the game and trying to get roles. That if it looks like you're looking like you did something good, then they know that works to a point as well.
Yeah, look, I want the movie to be good, like you guys are saying. This is probably, and he's pretty much said this is going to be his last movie. Dude's like 97 years old. Like,
we'll find out.
I'm exaggerating.
We hear
a little
that
bit,
a lot. We always hear the quote "final movie" a lot, man.
Oh, we just lost Price again. He's been having some
back.
Internet issues, yeah. But no, he's been wanting to make this movie for I think like almost two decades or more now. It's a movie that Hollywood just never wanted to seem to give him money for. It's like an allegory for the fall of the Roman Empire set in a future world is kind of the quick sell of it. But you got people like John Voight, Shia LaBeouf in it, and who are known as canceled and conservative. Welcome back, Price. And of course, it also stars Adam Driver,
Kylo Ren. Yay.
Yeah, it also has Aubrey Plaza, Dustin Hoffman, Lawrence Fishburne, Giancarlo Esposito, and Nathalie Emmanuel.
Nathalie.
So it's got a pretty loaded.
Sounds like a Mike
cast.
Tyson name, Nathalie.
That's my sister, Nathalie.
You better be nice to her. Nathalie's a really nice to her. Girl.
She'll take you in the ass.
Whoa.
She can punch harder than I can. Where do you think I learned how to punch? All right, Paul. Yeah, I'll send you this here in a second here because I didn't know if you'd be around or not. But yeah, you'll definitely probably want to get on the La Bamba talk here too in a bit.
Can't help myself. We watched. I remember just being. When we get to it, when we talked about it, I really loved that movie as a kid.
Quote that movie, man. You have
I know.
no idea.
Love it. Loved it. It made kind of a connection between me and my parents because that was their era.
Steve gave you everything, man. What did he give me? He didn't have shit left for me, man.
Is that his brother?
Yeah.
Huh, that was really good.
He didn't give a fuck about me. But I loved him. Like a dog.
Hey, Paulie wants to slide into here.
Yeah, I'm looking for him in my DMs here. That's why I was kind of improvising there for a second. Richie! My favorite bit in that movie, though, is when he's like, who drew this, man? This looks like shit. A monkey can draw better than this. Cut to the next scene. Should have kept my mouth shut. He's painting all the signs. Richie Valenzuela and his flying guitar. Anyway, we'll get to that here in just a few minutes when Paulie gets in here. But yeah, no, I'm kind of looking forward to this. But he says he's not looking to be some woke Hollywood production. Says the cast includes people who were canceled. And they've been trying to cancel him since he started working on this. I mean, every week it's like they're coming after him with something. And last week or week before it was the extra on the set got kissed, and she's like, no, I was fine with it. And then some other extra said, well, I wasn't. I'm like, well, where's the video of you being kissed? I've seen the video of the chick who says that she doesn't mind being kissed, but I ain't seen no video of you being kissed that you're claiming that you didn't like it.
Yeah,
So
I keep hearing about this.
I'm not calling her a liar per se, but I want some evidence.
An extra? Who? What happened?
Well, the other thing that's stupid is like half the extras and stuff, as far as I know, is made up of like his family and friends and shit anyway.
Right.
Well, and that's what's bothering Hollywood is like, yes, you're right. The Scribe put it best is this is like a very self-indulgent film. It's exactly what it is. Right. Like this is a man who knows he's on his way out and he's doing exactly what he wants to do.
Is that really the root of the animosity though? Because I don't really understand. It's like, okay, the guy finds the money and wants to make a big
it's his money. He's making it outside the Hollywood system.
So
I think that's what's pissing people off.
Okay, so because he's not playing ball with the usual players, they're just like they have no loss in just crapping all over it.
Yeah, I think that's the big problem.
Nobody's got any stakes in it, so it's just like, because I'm wondering, is there something else going on here with like, oh, he's an old white man trying to do this, that, and the other.
That's about like all those things into one, basically.
Yeah,
the woke tards just are not on board with this for some reason. Everybody else is just kind of laughing at it, going, "You go, old man, spend your money however you want." You know, your like that's one way to say fuck you to your grandkids.
I wanted to do well. I wanted to do well, not only because it's a good middle finger, like you said, Tom, but I actually like Francis Ford Coppola, and I want it to be good, but I just have a feeling that it won't be.
Yeah, I have a feeling with the way this movie, like, look, if there was something to this movie that Hollywood thought was there, it would have been made 10 years ago, right? 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, not to give any credit to the system, but yeah, if there was something actually viable to this, it wouldn't have been sitting in development hell for 2 decades.
And yeah, and not because, like, you know, 20 years ago, yeah, you could say it would have cost too much, maybe because the vision is so big. Right. With CGI and stuff in the last 10 years, there's not much you can really.
And at the same time, as much as maybe he's getting pushback now and everything for going rogue and all, I mean, Francis Ford Coppola wasn't somebody that couldn't, like, if somebody believed in the project, they wouldn't have been like, Francis, you do what you need to do. So the fact that they pushed back this much and nobody's willing to give him the time, it's just like, well, he is Francis Ford Coppola, but, you know, not every idea Einstein had was a knockout of the park either. So
true.
And he, like you said, he's
and
like,
nor does it need to be. That's, I mean,
no,
we all have
no, it doesn't.
good days and better and not so good days. It happens, but yeah, he's definitely easily past his best days. I respect that he still got the passion, but I really do hope that he does see that, you know, if this is his last thing, he's got to try to give it as much as he can, because yeah, he's definitely way past his prime.
Didn't he make Becky Sue Got Married?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to remind
myself. That had
of
Nicolas Cage in it.
Yes.
So, you know, at least it's something, I guess, but it wasn't, even that wasn't the best movie.
You know, the last movie of his that I saw was The Good Shepherd back in 2006. I'm looking at his filmography and I'm looking at everything after The Good Shepherd.
Was The Good Shepherd the one with De Niro and maybe Damon? Who was in that
movie?
It
was kind of the origins of the CIA movie. and it was
I
it
can
was
barely remember it. I feel like
it
I
was
watched it and I can't even remember what's
yeah,
really going on
it
there.
was very sweeping. It was very epic. It wasn't any kind of action movie. It really was sort of a thinking man's movie after fact. It was just on the edge of that, like, well, it's sort of like on the edge of what I think Megalopolis is going to be, just more indulgent than it is maybe topical or timely.
I feel like
Because
The Good
everything
Shepherd
after
probably
that,
should have been his swan song, and even that I can't really remember if I actually liked it.
yeah, he did. Yeah, Good Shepherd. He was the. Pardon me. He was the executive producer. I thought he was the director on that too.
Oh, he wasn't even the director. Who
I thought he
did
was the director.
Rainmaker?
He
Oh,
directed that one.
he directed that one. Yeah,
And
Rainmaker was
that's
great.
maybe his last good movie.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, you might be right, but I'm trying to think he hasn't even done much since then. Yeah.
See, when was his last direction?
Because that's the other thing I've been trying to say is like Hollywood hasn't exactly been too. He's never really been a Hollywood guy.
Oh, he
never.
just produced that. I thought he directed Good Shepherd. I apologize. I was under the impression.
Oh, then
that, no,
forget
he-
about it. And I'm not even sure I liked it. But Rainmaker, I think, was good, and I think he directed that. And then there was some movie
Yes.
where Robin Williams never grows up, or he's
Jack
too
was
old,
one
or-
that he really. That was one of the reasons why the Hollywood quit giving him money. Was Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't a good movie. I don't know. I think Rainmaker, that really is the only thing that pops up in my mind that he made a movie that was genuinely good.
Megalopolis and Distant Vision he did in 2015. Never heard of it.
No,
I don't know if it's a
I'd heard of.
documentary.
Yeah,
Distant Vision
Tetro
looks like
and-
it might be a. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so I was just saying, Tetro. I remember hearing about just because Vincent Gallo was in it, and I only remember that because Vincent Gallo is such a controversial actor and everything goofy that he does.
Yeah, I vaguely remember Twixt.
Vincent Gallo is the one that filmed himself getting
Yes, done by Chloe by
serviced
Sevigny
by
or whatever.
Chloe
Yeah.
Sevigny,
Yeah, that was Brown Bunny, I think.
like a
Way back
full
in the day.
service.
Yeah, full
situation.
service.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I can see what happened here. Basically, whoops.
He directed Supernova. I didn't know that.
Well, that was a mess. It looks like you got to understand. Like that movie had 3 fucking directors.
I know.
That movie was like an abysmal mess, and he basically paid the price for that movie. It sounds like Jack. Rainmaker didn't perform as well as the other John Grisham movies did.
Oh,
So those
Rainmaker
3
was great.
movies in a row pretty much killed his main career. if
But
you look at
Rainmaker
it.
was good.
It was, but it just didn't do shit at the box office.
No.
I mean, and yeah, I did okay on DVD and video. It's got good ratings and all, but like Jack really hurt his career, and then any participation he had in Supernova really, really hurt him.
Yeah,
because that was coming off of Bram Stoker's Dracula and Godfather 3, which say what you will about Godfather 3,
and
it still made money. It still got nominated for tons of Oscars. It still was on a lot of critics' top 10 list of that year. So, I mean, say what you will about it. It is what it is. That being said, no, I hope this movie's good. I would like to have him just kind of show Hollywood that you can still make films that aren't an IP and be successful, although he spent a lot of money on this movie from what I've heard. So we'll have to see. But yeah, let's get into some other stuff here too while we're at it. Now that the crowd's starting to show up. We got
Hello,
Patrick
crowd.
Robinson sending in $4.99. It says, Tom, was the movie that you said should have triggered warning house with a clock in its walls? Kids came out of it crying. Maybe, but I don't think so. No, it was something else. No, I remember what it was now. You just made me remember it. Wow, that's weird. It was fucking Thor. Remember, everybody was griping about the cancer plot line in Thor. And it's like, well, there goes to show you the real comic book fans and the non-comic book fans, because we all knew going into this that was going to be part of the plot. There was a bunch
Love
of
and Thunder?
people. Yeah, there was a bunch of pansies that were freaking out. Like, I wish they would have told us that cancer was a part of the fucking plot. It's like, so now everything has to have some kind of trigger warning on it, or what?
Oh, God. Ugh, what an awful precedent.
Which could really look, honestly, I don't like labels to begin with. I don't like trigger warnings to begin with.
Yeah, don't like that.
all these things for various reasons. One, I've said a million times over, the quickest version I can say is because the first thing they do is they put a warning on something. Then they make something, illegal. Then they take it away from you, and if you have it, then it's contraband and blah 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 blah. Or they change it and then it's illegal. You know what I mean?
I have a trigger warning at the theater. The last movie that I saw, which nobody else saw, that Blink Twice movie, which I don't recommend actually. It had a trigger warning before the movie.
And I think I know why that is, Price, because the girls were just talking about that last night. It's because of that It Ends With Us movie, because that's where this whole thing comes from. That's what he's talking about. Patrick is here. Because, yeah, the girls were talking about this last night because a bunch of people were saying that that movie should have a trigger warning on it because it's about, domestic situations.
Yes, and the thing that I saw, it had to do with women being taken advantage of.
Yeah,
so,
the Me Too movement, basically.
Right, so very Me Too and stuff like that going on there. And they put a trigger before, but in a way, on the one hand, I understand maybe why they would put it, but on the other hand, it's really telling the person what the movie is about before he's watching the movie. That's what I was going to get
to, yeah. Because besides the whole warning being a problem to begin with, that's the other thing I have an issue with.
Well, this is what ratings are for. It's like if you go into a movie and it's like, oh, what is it rated? Well, it's got R because it might have,
Well, not only that, there are other websites you can go look. And you're right, and I agree. Why should you ruin it for everybody else in the audience? Some of us are fucking adults and can handle adult situations, right?
Yeah.
Some people do have legitimate trigger warnings. That I understand. Like dolphin love can trigger some people. Totally understandable. Animal cruelty can trigger people. Totally understandable. Sure. Like in that sense, though, guess what? There are websites you can go to, parental ones and other places that will break down and tell you the type of things that are in these movies, right? Like, because I know some people who get triggered by these things and they do that. If they ask me about it first, if I don't tell them, then they'll just go to one of these like websites that has the breakdowns of what's in these films and it'll tell you. Especially the parental ones are real good. Like, like the Christian based ones or whatever, you go and they'll tell you how many swear words are in it, how many sexual situations, how many drug situations, how many assault situations, how many violence, and all the way down the road.
I prefer not to know anything. I mean, I just want to sit down and watch the movie.
No. And exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. My point is if it's already out there, there's resources already out there for people who need to know this shit. Why is it our fucking problem?
Right.
Like, that's my point. Yeah. Like, why should we suffer because of them?
Yeah, right. You're right. There's like, they should go to those websites that tell people, if they're triggered or not, and then they can leave the rest of the people alone.
Yeah. And I mean, and most of them work right with, the studios. They get to see the early versions, like critics and stuff like that. So it's not like you have to wait. You can generally go and find out, especially, like I said, the parental ones will tell you if there's any kind of those situations normally that would trigger people anyway. So
it seems like that in Ends With Us movie, the people were triggered in the cast more than the viewers.
Oh, that whole thing is turning out to be a mess.
You know what's really funny? Just as an aside, so Jason Baldoni, the guy, the actor in that thing, he did a TEDx that I did a long time ago.
The director and the actor, by the way. I think he directed it as well.
Yeah, I did a TEDx TED Excellence with Kurt Metzger, looking at Jason Baldoni as this. He was positioning himself as this feminist actor or whatever. I forget what it was. Or no, sorry. Yeah, sorry. He was talking about toxic masculinity. So I think that's probably why he took the role to sort of like back that up. It's kind of funny hearing now that he's had a bunch of fights.
Anybody that stands around and says toxic, and a man that lectures about toxic masculinity has something to hide.
Oh, pardon me, Justin Baldwin. Thank you, Kiefer Dam. I apologize.
The harder they signal, the greater the skeletons in the closet they are.
No,
Nick's awake.
Yay!
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
I've
been enjoying my Red Bull.
What I was going to say is about a kid coming crying out of the movie. You know what? I saw Return to Oz in the theater as a kid, and it freaked the hell out of me.
Litmus
and you know
test.
what? And you know what? It was good for me. All right, it builds character. God damn it! You put a kid.
There's a few of those
scare the hell out of them.
Scribe's right. There's a few of those movies. Return to Oz was one of them. Never Ending Story with the Horse. I mean, My Girl was another one. I mean, there's tons of these movies that we had as kids that were good life lessons.
Hey, Bambi had a lesson too.
Bambi, yeah.
Yeah, they give you a reaction. They conjure in you a memory of something really strong, and they make you like realize your humanity. And it's something that kids should have to go through. It's like Grimm fairy tales, right? They taught a lesson, and the lesson was the world is not necessarily a nice place. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, and you just have to deal with it, you little rugrat. And that's basically what I learned from those things.
It shows you how to roll with the punches. It's a great way
of
showing how to roll with it, because bad things do happen, but it gives them a way of preparing for how to handle it once they actually, see it for the first time, because it's an initial shock. And those movies have a good way at prepping people like that.
Children's stories used to do that. Meaning,
really good at it too. Really
right, like
effectively.
Hansel and Gretel. Didn't she want to put them in an oven? Red Riding Hood didn't he eat his grandmother, or whatever it is in some of the versions. They wanted to warn you that there could be bad things out there, and these stories was their way of explaining it to kids, so the kids have like a reality check. But these days, because of all the triggering, their kids don't have a reality check, and that's why they're disconnected from reality.
Yeah, people are bringing up Watership Down in the chat. Even Transformers, the animated movie, traumatized kids.
Right, they killed everybody there.
They fucking killed everybody.
You know what? It wasn't a trauma for me as much as I was just annoyed, because I felt like I just don't. I want to see Optimus Prime, and these other imposters, like I don't buy them. That was my issue.
Right. Hey, we got a Canadian here finally.
The Canadian.
CC karaoke. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Canadian.
Good to have
you. Just traveling to the new location for camping today, and took a little longer than I anticipated. That's why I'm late.
Is it real hot up there, or is it not too bad for you?
Nah, it's about 70 degrees.
Oh, you're fine. It's been hot as fuck down here.
My bedroom slide malfunctioned, so I had to spend 30 or 40 minutes trying to figure that one out.
Well, it's not as bad as my toilet overflowing earlier, but anyhow.
No, there's worse things that could happen.
Luckily it was clean. There was nothing in it at the time.
Fortunately, I've never had my RV toilet.
I was having an issue
but...
with it, and then I plunged it, and then it went down. So I hit the thing again to redo it, and then it didn't want to go down again. It's just this thing.
Everything about this sounds.
I'm on like an incline where I'm at, so it's every time it rains, we have issues with flushing here. Anyway, that being said. Goddess of Whim does bring up an interesting point does bring up a poignant point about this Ends With Us movie. And this is, look, it's not so much the trigger warning that I think they should have had, because that was what people were upset about. It's that it was mismarketed. See, in Goddess of Whim, that's probably where you had an issue with it, because as for those who it Ends With Us, I couldn't get a beat on what it was that's kind of punny, on what it was about, but it looked like a sappy chick flick that will make you cry. I hate movies like that. Well, that's the thing. It's not so much about the sappy romantic side of it. It's about dealing with the
conflict.
The conflict. Thank you.
The domestic conflict. Let's call it domestic conflict.
That works better. Yeah. You got to be careful with some word combos here, unfortunately.
Oh, did I say a bad word, Tom?
What word isn't a bad word
untested
nowadays?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we don't even know.
No, but
Patrick,
I used it in isolation. I didn't say anything before or after. I mean, it's a word that if you just would say it, nothing bad would happen to you, I think.
It's funny because I was just before the show that Patrick asked this. It's kind of ironic because besides us talking about this last night on the show, which prompted his question, I was just talking to another YouTuber who I watch his video reviews of, and he's an older gentleman, a British guy, and he was really upset. He mentioned in his review of Highlander that the movie has a trigger warning on it now, and it just rubbed him the wrong way. And I said, well, look at it this way. I said in about in a few years from now, hopefully all the modern shit will have the trigger warning instead. Like Andre.
Wait, why would Highlander have a trigger warning?
Oh, for fuck knows. Because there's probably Nazis in it.
Decapitations, you know.
Yeah, but that's part of the movie.
They always, all of them have this blanketed, like, this movie was made in a time and it expresses outdated ideals. Basically, it's like
you want to watch it. If I see a trigger warning like that, they're like, this movie was made at a time where, you know, people were free to make movies without any bullshit. That actually gets me excited to watch it.
Well, as Beavis and Butthead used to say, we know when you hear, viewer discretion is advised. Viewer discretion is cool.
The warning you need is we hired a Frenchman to play a Scotsman and a Scotsman plays Spaniard. We apologize.
Yeah, that movie's all over the fucking place. That's probably what the trigger warnings were. By the way, you Wookiee walks are going to be triggered. There's a Scot playing a Spaniard.
I mean, there should be only one. There should be no trigger at all. That's what the movie is. Like, fuck them.
You Spanish peacock. Anyway, thank you for that question, Patrick. That was a really good question. Jeremiah Hembry, the movie you thought it wasn't the movie it was, but I'm not surprised because that got us on that whole other conversation, I should say. Jeremiah Hembry, not Jeremy, I do that every time, has been a member for 17 months and says, Christopher Reeve movie that's coming out. Can you please talk about it? Yeah, did you guys catch the trailer for that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a movie that I'm looking forward to, but it's going to be a tough one.
I feel like it's going to be very sad.
Yeah,
tough
and
watch.
Unfortunately, the timing of that was really sad because we actually lost a YouTuber who suffers from the same
Bird of Prey.
Suffered from this, same affliction, or however you want to put it, that Chris did. And yeah, Bird of Prey. So I just wanted to take a few minutes real quick, or a minute or two, to say a thing or two about him. He was a really great YouTuber. I miss getting to check in with him when I was editing in the afternoons and stuff. He's usually popped on live, and I did notice he was much more sporadic as of late, but I did not know until recently that he entered the hospital, and sadly, yes, he did pass away. So that was sad news to hear yesterday. So I don't know if you guys are real familiar with him or not, but
I know of the guy. I know he definitely had a lot of significance within our corner of YouTube. I never looked into his YouTube stuff, but I'm definitely aware of him. So it's still really unfortunate. Still very unfortunate, because I had heard from people that he was not doing well for a while. So it's just things I heard through people, and I still feel for the guy. It's really unfortunate he fought a long battle with all that.
Yeah, he's had a lot of health issues over the years. I remember Nerdrotic and us guys trying to get him some help with a heart doctor a while back. We were able to help hook him up with that. But yeah, he's just constantly had struggles. I know that. I know the last time I actually kind of did converse with him was through the chat on one of his streams, and I asked how he'd been and stuff. And I know he'd give the typical, can't complain, but, been dealing with this, that, and the other kind of thing. And but he always does it in good spirit, and he always had a great sense of humor. And it's just, this year can go fuck itself. Seriously, at this point.
I'm sorry to say that I was not aware of him until after I heard of his passing, but I was curious. I went over to his YouTube channel, and I hope nobody here minds that I say that I was initially struck by just how similar or how much it reminded me of Clobby, and just like this constant focus and passion on the subject that he loved and obviously cared a lot about, and just like went for it all the time. And I really appreciate that in people, even if it's something that I'm not into, or not into as much as they are. I can appreciate that kind of passion.
Well, he's somebody that went through tragedy, being paralyzed the way he was.
I interacted with him a few times, but I didn't.
Go ahead, Price.
I interacted with him a few times, but I didn't know him well. But it's obviously sad, regardless. And he seems like he was a really good guy. So
yeah, but as I was just going to say, through his paralysis, he found the ability to go on through his love and passion for things such as Star Trek and so on, and getting to connect with people still through the internet. I think was a big deal to him, considering I'm sure he felt very isolated for a long time dealing with what he's been dealing with. And it's just sad. It is really sad, and I hate having to deliver this kind of news to anybody. But CC, Nick, I don't know if there's anything you guys wanted to say at all, but
unfortunately, besides everything I already said, I got nothing else, unfortunately. I still mourn for those who did know him. That's, once again, it's unfortunate.
I vaguely know him, of him, so I can't really say much. It's just, it feels like this is a year where a lot of people have died, and that really sucks. So I'll say that.
We just lost Tron. We lost Clobby. I mean, we lost
Cardinal Sin.
Crypt Daddy, like right after I met him.
Yep, Crypt Daddy. Yeah,
that was really fucked up.
I
mean, it's just this year. Seriously, just go screw yourself. All I have to say as a final note is, Kapla, my friend. Hopefully, you're in a much better place, and you can walk again. In fact, hopefully, you're flying right now. We got Elf with us, though, as I said before, for 25 months, and he sent in a super chat about Sonic 3. Said it's going to throw Mufasa off a cliff in the box office. Confirmed. Maybe. We're going to talk about that here. You guys want to talk about that right now? We can do that real quick.
Sure.
Because I've never seen Sonic 2 yet. Not that I don't want to. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So for those who have seen Sonic 2 and saw the new trailer, what did you think? So, Nick, go ahead.
I thought the Sonic 3 trailer looked good. It basically looks like it continues right off after where the second movie left off, and looks like it's going to be a little bit of the similar fun, good old-fashioned, fast-paced kids movie action. But it seems like it's Sonic's definitely going to be put to the test a little bit more in this movie compared to the other movies. So I think that's good. Should hopefully add some stakes to this one. Because, the two are really good, harmless fun, and this one seems like they got a really much more imposing villain this time around. Not that Robotnik is not, but it's just Shadow seems to be very effective in the trailer. And Shadow looks cool, which is great to say as well. And, I got kids who really like this movie, so I can't wait to take the family out to see this. And once again, it looks very fun. And the fact that they're finally putting this out around Christmas is probably one of the smartest moves that they've done, because not only because it's Christmas, you got a lot of kids who are on Christmas break and all that, New Year's Eve and all that, but with the goodwill gained with the first two movies mixed with that, I think this movie has a good shot at doing a lot better than both previous movies put together. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to hit $1 billion, but I think right now they're in a good spot where they could at least do $750 million, given the timing of it all. And I will be one of those people who'll probably see it opening night.
How much did the last one do?
I think like 400 or 500. And they both have come out like February, April type of dates. I know.
I remember the first one got killed by COVID. Excuse me. I know the first one got killed by COVID.
And it still did fairly good even before.
Yeah, it did really well leading into that. But then the second one, I know it did really well too, but I couldn't remember how much.
It did $400 million on a $100 million budget.
Oh yeah, okay. So this one probably do 500-600. You could be right. It could even stretch.
Sonic 2 did 400, and of course that's obviously the worldwide number. Yeah, I think this definitely will be what does it a lot better because of the timing.
The first one was like $85 to $90 million budget and made $319 million. The second one was around 100 or 105 or whatever it was, made like $400 million. So it's not unreasonable to think that this one will make 500-600.
Oh, 500 I think easily in the can. I think this is going to do 750.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go billion. I'm not going to go billion. Now, if it does, hey, great. But just, you don't want to get that ambitious with that. I just sound like Mike Tyson. You don't want to get that ambitious with it. So, but hey.
Well, like Alp said, it's going up right against Mufasa, which cost something like $250
so who's the
million.
Old guy here?
Oh, Sonic is going to do Shock.
That's Dr.
Yeah, but who's playing him?
Probably Jim Carrey again.
Is he playing both of them?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, yeah, it might be.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was curious if Jim was even going to be back, because I know there was rumors that he might not be, but then I think it was already confirmed that he was coming back.
No, he's going to make this movie.
These are his bread and butter right now.
Maybe he won't make more, but even that, if this thing makes money and they come to him with a lot of money to make more of them, I feel like he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Andy Kaufman can't turn down a new job. Sorry, I mean,
right. I mean, the thing is that even Jim Carrey, who maybe pretends to have ideals and whatever, when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, we'll give you $20-30 million if you continue to make these," or whatever they pay him, I think that he'll do it.
Yeah, could be. It could be. Wow.
I mean, as far as his career is concerned, it's relatively innocuous. It's just for kids and it's silly. He's a human cartoon again, which is what he always wanted to be in the first place.
That's what he does best, really. I mean, it's not that, like, yes, he did the Truman Show and he did that Man on the Moon, and he's fine. He can do, like, Spotless Mind or whatever it is. But really, for me, the best Carrey is when he's entertaining. And I feel like in these Sonic movies, it really plays to his strengths.
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber, yeah.
Yeah, when he just embraces, yeah, when he embraces his human cartoon, he's really good. When he's just on the edge of, like Truman Show's probably the epitome of his just on the edge of drama, not quite as goofy comedy.
Right.
And then you get like the number 23. Everything kind of goes by the wayside.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of some of his more dramatic stuff. Like I love Truman Show, I love Man on the Moon, but that's about as far as I take it. I haven't really dabbled in too much of other stuff. I got to see the Spotless Mind one. I know everybody keeps telling me.
I got to rewatch Truman Show. I resented it at 11 years old because all I could think of when I saw
Oh, that's the wrong age to see that movie.
I know. And I was so mad. I saw him like, this movie's not funny. Screw this movie.
Yeah, that's a very wrong. Like I loved the Truman Show when I'm like, this movie, he better get some Oscars for it. And then after Man on the Moon, I'm like, if he don't get Oscars for this, then they fucking hate him. And like, what's sad about Man on the Moon is it bombed so badly. I was sitting in the theater with me and my buddy, and there was only like 2 other people in the theater, and they happened to be like young teenage girls. So clearly they were going in thinking it was going to be the next Liar, Liar, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask kind of movie.
So I wasn't the only one.
So no, this was Man on the Moon though. So like about half hour into the movie, they left. And it was just me and my buddy. I'm like, I just turned to him and I said, they clearly had no idea what they were getting into, did they? Because that movie was probably one of the better biopics I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that they got most of their actual people playing themselves helps, even though
that was weird. That was a little.
It was weird, but it works. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But Goddess Whim has an interesting $5 super chat here. Thank you for being here, Goddess. Says, hi everyone. I survived my Power Rangers con. Well, good for you. Big, huge Power Ranger fan.
That sounded like Christian Bale.
Oh, okay. Like Bat Bale or like regular Bale?
No, the one that he gets upset because somebody did something on.
Oh, duh. I know what you're talking about.
Australia.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, the one I got the thing right here. Where'd it go? Where's my thing?
Oh, good for you.
Oh, good for you.
How was it? She says this generation isn't going to have anything for themselves except remakes nobody asked for.
No kidding. No.
And that's the part that irks me about why we have as many remakes as we do, because each generation has their own things that they can come up with. Like, this is our thing. This is what we have when we grow up. And now the current generation, they just live off of everyone and everything else. They don't have that thing that makes them distinct, that gives them their own identity. And now it's just they're living off everyone else, and they deserve to have their own thing as well. But instead, people go, but we got to introduce old ideas. No, you don't. Like something, sure, some keyword, some, not every single thing on the planet. But let the next generation have things that are like, hey, this is our thing. But we won't let them have that because we just want to play it safe and maintain the status quo.
Well, here's the other problem too, is that there's just such a glut of stuff that there's nothing for any particular generation to latch onto on common ground. Like when we were kids and everything, there were like four TV channels and like 5 or 6 like production companies and only a few theaters in town. Now there's every streaming thing on the planet. Yeah, it was great because then everybody had shared experiences that they could then trade with one another and talk about. Like when I mentioned Thundercats or something, there's an entire generation that knows what I'm talking about. The shorthand for an entire growing up. Now, I when I turn on my TV, I got one of those Roku TV things, right? And it's got all these little preview windows of all these like shows and movies and things that I could watch if I wanted to. And I'm looking, I'm like, I have never heard of that before. It's got 3 seasons. How? And it's just completely it's completely ignorable. Like I keep seeing these shows advertised on like Variety and stuff. It's like, oh, the iPhone cover gets its 2nd season on HBO Max. Like, the what? Why? Huh? And I've never heard these things. It's just so much stuff.
I just thought of something that actually during those days that you just mentioned with the 4 channels, I feel like people watched shows with a lot more diversity than they do now.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. It's because they had to appeal to a larger demographic.
Right, but I'm
G.I.
also saying,
Joe.
how many shows, if you think of comedies and things that happened in the 80s, so many shows had like an African American cast, shows that had maybe an entire
Dude,
African
the
American.
90s, Black
Yeah.
family-led shows were all the rage, and almost all of them were great.
Living
Well, as I
Single,
pointed
Rock.
out, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
Living Single was Friends before Friends.
No shit.
People, that's why I never got into Friends. People have asked me that before. Why didn't you like Friends? Because I already saw the show. It's called Living Single. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's the exact same fucking show. A set of three men and three women live in the same apartment building, and they all hang out at like this joint together, and it's all about their will they, won't they relationships between each other and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're living and bitching about their careers and all that kind of crap. Isn't that exactly what fucking Friends is? Only white?
Tell you, I never watched it.
Pretty much.
I've never watched Friends, so
I don't remember the exact place they hang out in the show, but it's a lot like the coffee joint they do, and it's the same kind of setup, right? And it came out like the year before Friends. So that's what's funny is like Friends technically kind of ripped that formula off. But anyhow,
I always felt that Friends also tried to sort of lean into the popularity of Seinfeld, and they said, what if Seinfeld had men and women that were more attractive and more kind of appealing and younger, and maybe some of it was Living Single, some of it was like Seinfeld-ish.
Seinfeld had, like, here's the thing with Seinfeld. Seinfeld was probably the last original sitcom. And I'm not even that huge of a fan. I enjoyed it. It's all right. Like, if I ever see it, I'll watch it. But like, it was never a show that I watched religiously when it was on. But because it's not about relationships between friends, I mean, it did kind of rip off that formula, right? You're not wrong of having the friends just kind of hanging around in an apartment, just talking shit and whatever. And sometimes it's about relationships and stuff, but not very often. Like, it was more based on, Seinfeld's stand-up, as he liked to put it. It was a show about everything, not just nothing, like everybody said. But thank you, Kitty. Just what I needed right now.
Oh,
to be molested.
Whoa, Putty Tat. Oh, Tom is friend to animals.
Tom's got a
Just
nice
at the
tail.
worst possible times.
Putty Tat. I just want love and food. Love and food.
Give me everything. That's what I
Love
want.
and food.
The cat
Let me
wants
rub my
tail.
stinky breath against you. Love and food.
Give me some more stuff and loves that I'm gonna lay on you.
Oh my gosh! No, we're watching Snow White right now. The animals are dying. We need some little birds like twirling around his head and everything. Yeah.
Whistle while you work. Now go do some work, Kitty. Can you learn how to do dishes?
Yeah. This is Tom. Put that pussy to work.
Oh. Oh my.
That was very naughty.
Sorry, YouTube. Sorry, phrasing.
Well, in the
You
meantime,
are
here I was
proud
actually
of your
looking for this
phrasing.
clip of. Did I show this yet on here? I don't think I did. I've showed it a couple other places this week already. But it's a clip of Siskel and Ebert from 1988.
Oh,
because the price made me think about it. Roger's talking about. Okay, here we go. I found it.
All right.
I gotta just get it right back to where he starts here. But yeah, he's talking about. This is them talking about Mississippi burning in 1988.
One of the strange things is that when some of the Vietnam movies came out a few years ago, like Platoon, the prime movie-going generation, which is, let's say, between 17 and 25, were really not familiar firsthand with the Vietnam War at all. It's the same with the Civil Rights Movement.
No question.
I went to see this movie to screenings, and people were walking out saying, were things really like that, in America? And I'm saying, this was so recently that the cars are still on the road. This was 24 years ago. That's how much things have changed. People need to know that.
Yeah, I think they're surprised by the amount of hate that's on the screen, and that's a tribute to the film. Here now.
The amount of hate.
So yeah, like I think that's poignant in the sense of how people act nowadays, how everything's so racistophobe. Like even then in 1988, those guys were saying like, yeah, we've gotten so far this fast that it wasn't even 20 years ago at that point that, kids, now here we are 30 years from there, right? 35 years from there. Where, Roger was saying as he was leaving the movie, there was some younger audience members going, God, was it really that bad?
Yeah, I remember when I was 6 years old. I remember this. So I've talked about this on my shows before. When I was 6 years old, like first grade or second grade or something, and the teacher wheeled in the TV on the stand with the VCR underneath and everything. Those of you that are of a certain generation remember this. And we watched these old black and white newsreels it was like leading up to Martin Luther King Day and everything. And see these newsreels of like the fire hoses and the riots and everything else and all these things about the I Have a Dream speech and everything. And I'm sitting there as a 6-year-old. And of course, time is dilated when you're a kid. And this was happening in the 60s. And I'm sitting there in the 80s. So like I say, it's only, just 20 years earlier thereabouts. And I'm thinking this is ancient history. It was like, people really were bad to each other like that? That's mean. I'm like a little kid. Like, no, we don't do that. I'm looking around my classroom and like, there's Asian kids and black kids and everything. I'm like, this is like ancient Rome type stuff. It felt so long ago and so separate from the reality I lived in. So
because most of us grew up in a world where, we saw a lot of our kids shows where they were very diverse. Like I think Price brought that up earlier, and that's kind of where got us down, or Nick said it first, and then Price was adding to it.
G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe was
and you brought up G.I. Joe.
Yeah, Spirit and Roadblock and everybody else is like, holy cats, like what this is how the world used to be. Well, I'm glad we don't live in that world anymore.
When every dude on the planet wanted to be like Bruce Lee, and most of those dudes are white and did not look like Bruce Lee at all. Like at all.
Dude, I wanted to be what's his name? I forget the actor's name. The bald guy in Predator. It's like you make another sound, I'll cut you. Look, I was like, I want to be that guy. That guy's fucking rad.
I'll tell you what about Bruce Lee. That's funny you bring him up, Nick. Like of the 3 black guys I knew growing up, all 3 of them separately had Bruce Lee posters. It's weird.
I'm sure.
He had a very strong audience of African American.
I know that was kind of the point I was making, but isn't it kind of funny how everything just kind of went cross? And that how happened during the 70s, right? We had this big, huge, like, it was okay for white guys to get into like black music and stuff like that. That's how disco got born.
You want to know how past this crap we were in the 90s? That we actually recreated this problem again. Go look no further than DMX in Woodstock. It's either 98 or 99.
Yeah,
Woodstock DMX playing to like a giant, huge crowd of pasty whites. I mean, like, what, 20, 30, 50,000 people? It's like an abyss. And let's just say he begged this crowd to say a very specific thing. And let's just say it worked. It worked, and then some.
With an A, I think it was.
So I can't remember, but the point is, when he got that crowd to say that, like to me, that was just like a thing. As a crowd, was just like, whoa, he got that crowd to say that. But I'm just like, wow, that's wild to think nowadays. Like, in retrospect.
Well, speaking of DMX, which is funny,
years later,
because that'll get us back down the path of where we were headed. Because actually, Goddess of Whim set us up perfectly for the next few stories about remakes. And believe it or not, at one point we almost got a remake of The Crow with DMX and Eminem. But we're going to talk about another remake first. Before we get into that, though, it's a remake about a Mexican American. But we have a Mexican American in the chat who probably should be on the show, but he's playing hooky. Mexican Iron Man says Godfather 2 is greater than Godfather 1, which is greater than Godfather 3, which is greater than Quentin Tarantino, LOL. I'm not going to argue with that per se outside of Godfather 1 is definitely better than Godfather 2. Yeah. And there's only one reason why.
Marlon Brando. And Godfather 1 is better than Godfather 2, although Godfather 2 is really good.
It is. It's a direct continuation, right?
3, I don't consider. It's like almost like I don't consider it canon. I've seen it. I tried to forget about it. I don't want to think about it.
I like it all right, but I also consider it kind of its own thing. Like that's where I didn't mind, even though I don't prefer that version. I didn't mind Francis recutting it and calling it coda or whatever the fuck you
Yeah,
call it.
even his recut, he could recut it in any way, shape, or form, and it's still going to be a
I
pretty
prefer
shit
the
movie.
full extended cut. I don't know if you've ever seen that version.
I've
That's
seen.
the
I
version
think
like.
every few years he puts another thing. He's like, no, this will really show why it wasn't shit.
There's 3 versions,
right?
but
And then I watch it, and it's like, sorry, Francis, it's still shit.
My first experience with Godfather was actually maybe a little unusual because I went to rent it at the video store, and it was the combo pack of Godfather 1 and 2. But it was recut in such a way that the first hour of the movie was the Godfather 2.
So you saw the Chronicle version. I was going to bring that up, actually.
But I didn't actually realize what I was watching when I started watching it because it was the first time I'd seen it. So I thought I was watching Godfather 1 until I realized I was actually watching Godfather 2 before I was watching Godfather 1. And it was confusing, to say the least.
Yeah, those first 2 movies are just so well entwined with one another. You can do that, and it still makes sense because it's just one.
Because you had so many of the same people working on them, and it
Well,
feels
yeah,
like
and it's
the
one
same
contiguous
movie,
narrative. Yeah, it picks up one from the other, and yeah, you could put them back to back like they're a double feature.
Well, and
without
that's
any
what I
content
liked
on
about
TV,
that
but no.
version, and it was
Yeah.
actually the TV cut, is what it was. So, for those who don't know what the hell people are what me and CC are talking about here is for ABC or whoever it was that showed it on 1 and 2 on TV a while back. They cut the 2 films together in chronological order, added in a bunch of deleted scenes. And then years later, HBO showed it for a while. So you could see it for a while in HD through one of their apps. But now it's like, this is the one thing that Francis hasn't released of the Godfather films that I wish he would do. And it's amazing cut of the films, the 2 films, because it starts out with young Vito, Robert De Niro's story, going into the original Godfather, then going into the Vegas stuff with Godfather 2, right? So like it's all just told to you in the order that it happens instead of bouncing around.
There's no way of getting that on DVD.
There's bootlegs out there. You might be able to find a version of it to download.
It's worth seeing. I loved the cut.
I had it on a DVR, but I don't know where I think that DVR is gone.
Yeah, I have no idea if it's what kind of shape it's in out there, but I'm sure somebody's got it out there.
Just for me, anyways, it was a little bit of whiplash because I absolutely loved that first hour, and then suddenly the story completely went what felt like in a completely different direction because it was my first time seeing it. So there was certainly a sense of whiplash for me. But then once I figured out what was going on, I thought it was great.
Yeah, because the original movie starts with the wedding, so you're like,
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Which doesn't happen until like an hour into the version you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I want to see though? I want to see the scene that has never been shown where he in Godfather 1 kills Fabrizio, and that scene is gone. Nobody's ever seen it. They reshot a different one for Godfather 2, which I can't even remember now if it's extended or not, but I'm just familiar with the scene. The Buffalo one, the one that the guy is in Buffalo with the car. But the original scene where he goes in with like a shotgun and kills him, I want to see it.
I'm trying to remember if I've even heard of that before.
Not many people know. There's actually still images from the scene, so you know that such a thing. If you look, there's one that like Al Pacino is with like this kind of rifle shotgun from filming the first one, and it is absolutely the scene that he kills Fabrizio. And they deleted it, and they've never shown it to anybody.
Yeah. And actually, Don Johnson says, wasn't it for AMC? Well, AMC, I think actually, now that you remind me, they showed the same version years later, but it was initially for a television premiere where they showed it over like 3 or 4 nights. But they just cut it into chronological order, added in a bunch of footage. I think they added in almost like an hour. In fact, that hour of footage is on the DVDs and Blu-rays. It's just not cut back into the movie. You can watch the deleted scenes, and it's in that area. Dash Attack is talking about the Sonic trailer here. He says the trailer shows they aren't toning down Shadow's backstory. This is good because it's core despite how much it pushed the tone in the game.
Well,
yeah, I'm not
good.
too familiar with it all, but
well, that's good to hear from someone who knows the Sonic stuff because he seems to talk about a lot on his Twix feed. So if you got someone who's in the know and they're optimistic, that's the equivalent of me. If I know it's something that's being comic accurate about something, that's the same thing. So that's good to know.
Yeah, Dash was gonna bop on here, but he was dealing with some stuff when we buzzed past the trailer faster than Sonic because we got a lot of other topics to get through here. So Sergeant Point Blank says we also had a lot more R-rated franchises that our parents let us watch that they wouldn't let us watch or make today. Well, there's a reason for that. It's a long, convoluted conversation that we've had before, but I will tell you this: the rating system has changed so much. That's part of the problem, right? There's things now that they would get away with that would have gotten an NC-17 back in the day with violence and such like that.
No kidding.
But like they've gone the other direction with sexuality and certain things where like you used to be able to get away with quite a bit more in a PG and PG-13 arena to where now it's like certain sexual elements will get you slapped with an R like that.
I was talking to my friend about this just yesterday. It's like, I mean, you think about Secret of Nim, which is one of my favorite movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, is that a kid's movie? In a way it is, or even Watership Down. There are reasons why you might say it's not a kid's movie, right? But it's for maybe the frightening themes, right? The frightening imagery that is a bit darker, but it's not because of the kind of messaging and really messed up shit that gets into today's programming where you actually have to pre-watch everything today before you show it to your kids. Not because it might be a little bit dark or a little bit frightening, but because of other stuff.
Well, yeah, like we were talking about earlier. Yeah,
and it'll still get a PG rating despite that stuff, which is like, oh, come on,
right? Yeah, we were talking about before about like a Return to Oz and like I say, Secret of Nim. It's like the subject matter is dark and can be distressing, but it's telling sort of a general universal message about friendship or danger and risk rather than trying to push some kind of ideology down your throat, literally.
And maybe, and I agree with you, Scry, and I was just going to bring that up too, that we were talking about this earlier. And I think you guys are right. Like, I think one thing though, that really changed was, especially because, going back to another topic we were talking about before that led us down some of this is where we had, only so many stations, so many studios, that kind of stuff before. Right. Like, so like in that sense, like you had specific children's entertainment came along with television more so. Before that, movies were made for the family. There wasn't just kids movies, right? Like Snow White wasn't directed for kids necessarily. It was meant the part of the experiment of Snow White. And if you guys, I don't know if you guys know the history of those who do, forgive me, but it's like basically the whole experiment was, can we get adults to come see a 90 or a feature length animated film and actually give a shit about the characters? Because even half of the animated stuff made back then wasn't made just for kids. It was made for everybody. Like Looney Tunes and all that stuff was meant to appeal to both kids and adults. That's why there's two levels of jokes in a lot of those things. Pixar was a great example, or the Lion King, Little Mermaid era of Disney is a good example of where they started to realize, oh shit, we vacated the family and started directing shit more towards kids too much. We need to remind ourselves that there are more people here. And that's where Katzenberg was trying to remind Eisner all those years throughout the 80s that there's a whole nother audience that we're neglecting here, right? Like there's movies that can be made for kids, there's movies that can be made for families, and there's movies that can be made for adults. And then they also realize that there's kids that can be made for that teenage range too, right? And that's where they really found some bread and butter in the 90s. So I think the difference is you had this like hodgepodge before television really kind of came into the purview of like, we got to make stuff that's more directed towards everybody, but family friendly, right? And then that flipped to things being more directed towards kids and less family oriented. And I think that's what they need to remember. And things like Watership Down and some of those other movies you guys mentioned, I think are good family films because they're not necessarily movies a kid that should watch by themselves, right?
That's true,
like
actually.
You can put a kid down in front of Winnie the Pooh and you're like, okay, it's Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day. He'll be fine. But you put him down in front of Watership Down, in an hour or so, you're going to have a fucking bawling kid on your hands. You're like, what the fuck's the problem? The rabbits are dead. There's blood in the sky.
That's how we did it when I was a kid, and we liked it, and we survived, and we're
parents were probably with you. That's my point, though.
No, they weren't. They left us to our own devices. They left us out by ourselves. Yes.
That wasn't until you're like 12, 13 and watching Friday the 13th. When you're just watching shit you're not supposed to be watching.
No, I lived in a different time. What can I tell you? It's like, sit here, watch this. I mean, like, oh my God.
No, my parents, well, there was times they would, but like the rating system worked better then too. right? Like the only time I remember the rating system being a big deal was when they invented the PG-13 rating. Because I remember parents got really bitchy, my mom being one of them, about Gremlins and Indiana Jones, which are the two movies that are specifically cited for the PG-13 rating. And even Ghostbusters to a point, because those effects and the stuff that's in those movies does lean quite into the R-rated range. Like couldn't even believe when I rented, because the first movie I ever rented by myself without having an adult was Jaws. And she couldn't believe it because she's like, isn't that R-rated? Because when she saw it in the theater, it scared the ever-loving shit out of her. Right? And she's like looking at the tape going, this can't be PG. She was disgusted, but she had to let me watch it because it was in the rules.
That's right. The law says so, Mom. See? The government says I can watch this.
PG. It's not R. Even then, my mom was pretty lenient on it. She probably still would have let me watch it. It was just the point. Because I remember it was because it was on TV or whatever, and I missed half of it or something like that, so I wanted to see the whole thing. Or Jaws 2 was coming on, one of the two, and I had to see the first one first. But, like, yeah. Anyway, that was my love affair with Jaws. Started there. Sergeant Point Blank sends in 5, says, we also had a lot more R-rated. Oh, yeah, I read this one already. So that's what got us down that conversation. So with that, let's get on to another quote-unquote franchise. Could you call this a franchise? La Bamba?
Yeah, franchise of someone's life and death. I mean,
okay.
What's the sequel to what's La Bamba 2?
Richie comes back for revenge.
Yeah, Gladiator 2. Like
he's back. This time it's personal.
Yeah. No, I love the original La Bamba. I mean, we were talking a little bit about it earlier, Scribe, and I mean, this was one of those movies of that era, and I was talking about this yesterday with Paulie. I don't know if he's going to bop in or not. I sent him the link earlier when he was asking for it, but this is one of the first things Paulie and I bonded over as our love for this film. And this was, funnily enough, speaking of the first whatevers, this was the first cassette I ever had, was the soundtrack to La Bamba.
I had it too. It wasn't my first cassette, but I definitely had it.
So we had cassettes, but it was
you lost your tape virginity.
Yeah, I mean, we had cassettes like my parents did, but like that was my first personal, like, given to me, kind of like my tape.
It was interesting that they wanted to re-record it with Los Lobos rather than to use the original one, but actually Los Lobos really knocked it out of the park.
They did. I said this yesterday. Yeah. It's one of the most well-produced albums I've ever heard in my life. It was one of the early digital recordings. I know that too. That might be part of it, but it was just very well produced. Really amps up the energy in the songs without changing anything drastically like they would normally nowadays, you know. But it's kind of an older style of biopic we don't get anymore. We know it takes a lot of liberty. So on that note, like, I'm not above the idea of this story being reapproached. Now, I use that term specifically because Paulie and I talked about this years ago on one of his shows where we were talking about all the young up-and-coming stars that were up-and-coming Hispanic stars, that is, because it was on Latino Slant. And we had been talking about Xolo, how do you say his name?
Meredueña.
Yeah, that guy from Cobra Kai. And he was one of the top few that we mentioned that if they ever did like a mini series like they had done with Selena for Richie Valens, he might be a candidate. And we got down that road and that idea of, you know, it would be interesting to kind of expand upon and look deeper into his life. And I mean, there's things like I was talking about last night, how in the movie we know is obviously amped up for drama, but I mean, they wash over a lot of things in their lives too, right? Like, I mean, there was more than one Donna, as I pointed out last night. Like, Richie was known as quite the ladies' man. He was a big strapping 6-foot-something guy in high school. Okay. He was like a linebacker size guy. The women loved him. And so like, that's, you know, there's little things like that. You know, I'm sure there's more family things they could get into. You could get even deeper into the relationship with him and Bob, which I thought was kind of the heart of the movie, right? I mean, Asai and him are the true heartbeat of the film. And, you know, I love this movie. I hate to have somebody touch it again, but it is a biopic. There's a way you can reapproach it. The problem is I hate that they're calling it a remake. It's going to be a movie. They're even talking about how they're going to try and emulate things from like, why?
Yeah.
I don't get this. And
Remaking a biopic is such a weird way to put it. It's like
Yeah.
if you want to do a profile of someone's life again and everything else, would you call I see, I don't even they shouldn't even call it La Bamba. They should call it something else if you really want to like separate it, because otherwise everybody's
Right.
going to be measuring it against the original.
La Bamba was
You
kind of
can't
a
beat-
horrible name for
The
it.
the Richie
Well,
Valens story.
Yeah, something like that, or pick something else. I
But
don't know
here's
if, you
also
know-
a problem, and this is why I don't know if there's even, it's necessary to do it. I'm going to say something controversial. I
Uh-oh.
like Richie Valens and I like his music, but honestly, he didn't have a long career. Making that movie in and of itself was like something you could squeeze out of this story. I don't know if you have like a 20-part miniseries to squeeze out of here.
Well, I always thought that was going to be maybe they did. Maybe they didn't make it or anything. I always thought that was going to be like the first of like some trilogy where they did like the Day the Music Died trilogy, and they do one for. Richie
Well,
Valens
you already
and Big
had Buddy
Bopper.
Holly, the Big Bopper.
You did
though,
have
to
Buddy
stay worth-
Holly, yeah. The Big Bopper.
Big Bopper had one fucking hit. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, I know, but still, I mean, it would have been interesting anyway.
No, I'm being a jerk.
No, but you know
American
what?
Pie in my head.
It's funny, but there's some truth in the sense that if you have a guy like Elvis and he's had like 1 million gold albums, whatever it is, platinum, and then you do a movie about him, everybody wants to see the movie. You could do a series about it. You could do a mini series. But really, with Richie Valens, it was cut so short.
I disagree to a point because Selena did so well, and she died rather young.
I think she
And I
still had more albums than Richie did.
Yeah,
Maybe,
had a
but
broader
that's not the
career.
point. That ain't my point here. What I'm getting to is the thing about this, and I said this last night, the thing that made the original film work, because it's funny, because I said this, sadly, if it wasn't for La Bamba, Richie would be a footnote.
Probably.
Because
Probably, yeah.
between the Big Bopper and Buddy Holly at the time, he was the lesser known of the three. And I didn't even know who the fuck he was until this movie came out, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd heard his songs, but I didn't know who the man was, or the young man.
Yeah.
Same.
And I think there's another way you can approach this that is kind of subtly there in the original film, but it's, more so focused on the two brothers. In the
But you know what I worry? That this will be a quote unquote modern retelling where they like him and his brother keep seeing people that are white and they get upset and things like that. If it's really going to lean into that, I say don't do it.
Oh yeah, but my point is like you can tell this. I don't know if you guys saw the Jackson 5 movie from years back that ABC
Yes,
did.
I saw.
They did a
Long time
really
ago,
good
yeah.
job with that movie. And the reason I say that this is how this could work is this is an original Mexican American story, right? This can be treated in a way and shown in a way and expanded in a way, or told in a way, I should say, not expanded, from the whole struggles of when Richie was young, the stuff that they went through, being, I hate to say it, yes, you would have to have some of that prejudice in there with the, but that was present.
I'm not saying
that was
existed.
present.
Yeah,
But it didn't happen until he moved up into into the more suburb area of California. See, and that's the thing. So like that was when he was kind of moving up in his life, because that's when Bob came back into his life and all. So there's stuff that you can kind of go through that doesn't necessarily have to do with the music per se. Right.
I want
and
to
there's
say
other
that-
stuff that he did with his career that they didn't even touch on. Like he was in a movie with Little Richie and shit back in the day, and stuff like that they never even got into. And so I mean, there's other things that they can get into that they didn't necessarily get into in the movie. But go ahead, Price.
I want to say that I agree with you. It's not that it should be sanitized. If he went through whatever he went through, which he likely did, it's worth showing it. But I just know that there's a modern audience type of way that they've been doing it over the past 5-10 years. Like even when I saw that Elvis movie, there were a lot of things there, some agenda peddling. I understand that there's certain things about Elvis and the time he was popular and people that can feel a certain way about certain things, but I really felt that movie wanted to insert some of that kind of lovely 2020 modern day 20 whatever it is modern day agenda. And if that's the reason why they want to make this La Bamba movie, remake it, then I'm against it. If it's like done with nuance, if it's a real story, if it's being done really thoughtfully and telling the story, even if it's bad things, I don't mind it. I mean, I can sit here and take it, even if there's something that's being said about people. I wasn't there, you know what I mean? I wasn't there mistreating him, so I don't mind watching it. I'm just saying, I just don't want it to be one of those kind of. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from. The other reason I can see them wanting to do this is we got another guest I got to bring in here real quick too. The other reason I think I'm kind of worried about this too, from that on a different kind of note, is if they were to do like they did with West Side Story, right? So they make sure that everybody is a specific ethnicity and all that kind of stuff. Paulie just sent me this here in the background. It looks like he's out driving, so hopefully he can hear us. He's muted at the moment. I'm gonna
Hey,
you gotta
Paulie.
unmute yourself. I can't unmute you.
I'll just wait
There
to
you
hear
are.
from you guys. Hey, what's up, guys?
So you sent me this in the background here, Paulie, about Luis Valdez. This is interesting. He's wondering why they're making a remake too, huh?
Yeah, looks like it, man. I haven't got a chance to read the whole article. I know the writer of the article, but this is the fact that the original writer director of the original film is like, why? That's a huge red flag for me. It was already a red flag. It just shouldn't be done. It was a perfect film for its time. It still stands the test of time. Maybe, like you said, a miniseries like they did Selena, but even the Selena miniseries was kind of creepy and cash grabby. That didn't need to be done. You know what I mean? So yeah, I didn't get a chance to read this article yet, but that definitely.
All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll read what he said here. Valdez, who's 84 years old now, believe it or not. So we got to get working on that La Bamba reunion now, Paulie, for sure. But anyway, he says here, my first question was why? I think that's a legitimate question that fans all over the world are going to be asking. He told the Times late Monday. I mean, the original film was a success as far as it goes. It has a lot of fans who are obviously going to react one way or another. He also wrote Zoot Suit and said he faced with the choice of either participating in the remake in some fashion or just ignoring it altogether. I always believe the negatives can be turned into positives, so in this case, I chose to help, he says. He agreed to join the project and provide context to the story of Richie Valens. The singer was born in San Fernando Valley and died in 1959. The reality is the movie and the script belonged to Sony. My contract said nothing about remakes. We are just grateful to get it made at the time. Your vision may be as personal as it gets, but the final product belongs to the studio. So yeah.
I have to say that Valdez got shafted. The thing is that today you don't make a contract like this without adding that spin-off and sister and productions and anything derivative productions. You put that into the contract, and that's like automatic. Now, I understand that this was in the 80s, but even in the 80s, people were already putting stuff in their contract. He must have just signed whatever piece of paper was given to him. I don't mean that to be mean, but the fact that he has nothing now with this remake, and they're just going to call it La Bamba and sort of redo it without him.
Let me just stop you right there. Because they did not want him they did not want him for the film, to direct the film. They didn't know who the fuck he was back then. It was Taylor Hackford who went to bat for him. So the fact that this really unknown Chicano director got the job was like unheard of. So there's that, and you're probably right. Oh, that's a sweet ass dude. I just saw like this neon what do you call it? Tesla truck. Wow, that was crazy.
A Cybertruck.
Yeah. Okay. So, you're right in the sense that he signed just signed the X on the X marks the spot in his contract, but he was a nobody, man. Absolutely. I mean, he had some respect from the theater world, the political world, but that was really among small circles back then. And
he was taken advantage of. I'm going to be honest. I'm with you. He was taken advantage of, not being given anything like what he just said in this article. That's really unfair.
Yeah. No. I mean, what he said in the article says a lot, and it's
the article went
really
shit
sad.
on me.
it's really sad to hear. But keep on reading, man, if you want to.
Well, it went shit on me because I don't have the blocker on. But anyway, the rest of it, he basically says, and this is where I agree with you, Price, to a point, is that I know the story that Paulie's talking about. Yeah, Taylor Hackford went to bat for him. The studio would have just as soon had Taylor direct. But he's like, no, this is a Mexican-American story. It needs to be told from a Mexican-American director. Me doing this story would be doing it a disservice. I think is almost verbatim what he said to us. Basically, you're right. He went to bat for Louise. And Louise, though, what he had done is he had spent 5 years doing the footwork on this movie. Because going back to what I was saying before was Richie was kind of the lost member of the day the music died, right? Like, there hadn't been a biopic about him. There hadn't been a bunch of books written about him. He hadn't been somebody that had a bunch of, documentaries written about him or made about him. So this was kind of the first time somebody was actually going to do something about this. And what he discovered was nobody had ever done the research. So he had to track down all of Richie's family and get all this done. And he talked to everybody from his mother to his sisters to Bob. Bob played a big part in the production of the film, actually. So that's where Paul and I were coming from last night, is like, what else can you really add to that Bob hadn't already told them, and mother hasn't told them already, but maybe if there's more to it. Yeah, I agree with Paulie.
I forgot there's such magic in how that movie got made, but basically the first conversation was like backstage at their Broadway production of Zoot Suit, like in the late 80, 81.
Yeah, because his brother was supposed to play Richie originally. Yeah.
Oh, his brother was an incredible, multi-talented singer-songwriter actor, Daniel Valdez, who's been born in East LA, worked with Linda Ronstadt. But listen, Tom's right, is that one, Richie was obscure to the general audience. We knew about him, but not to the bigger, larger, not like a Selena or a Santana.
Right.
Well,
his
Valdez,
time was so brief that he just didn't have the impact that like Buddy Holly had. Exactly.
Yeah, and then just Valdez, like you said, man, he did the footwork. So I'm going to break down this article later on, but this is like heartbreaking from what I'm hearing, man, because what it sounds like is Mucho Mas Media, who did the deal with Sony, they just wanted to get his participation in name only. They'll entertain some notes from him, but the fact that they hired Jose Rivera to write it, fuck that, man. I'm getting more and more pissed, and I am terrified as to who they're going to get to direct this film. So,
it actually kind of feeds into our Crow story as well, funnily enough. So hang around, kids. We are going to talk about Crow. It's kind of similar.
It's funny you bring that up, because when I saw this, my first reaction was to take the picture of they put up of Lou Diamond Phillips as Richie Valens and superimpose the picture of the Crow on top of it, because I'm like, here's another remake that's iconic in and of itself. Like you said, prior to this movie, most people had no idea about this guy. And when I was a kid, Richie Valens, just the concept of him, I knew it was a movie and everything, but this was a big deal when I was a kid. That soundtrack, Los Lobos, the movie was so great. Lou Diamond
their versions
really
of the songs
profile for sure.
I was just going to say their versions of those songs charted better than any of Richie's did, which is sad.
And here's the thing. And so as soon as I saw that, I immediately thought, like, okay, you got this movie. It doesn't have the same kind of mythos to it as The Crow does with Brandon Lee, but at the same time, you've got something that is a perfect snapshot of a biopic of someone that was obscure, rose to prominence, and is so iconic with Lou Diamond Phillips in that role and the music and everything else. This is another movie you don't remake, a remake of a biopic. It is so weird. And like you said, if you wanted to do a retelling of his, go ahead. Sorry.
Especially how they dealt with all the themes that you just said. Richie Valens now is more legend, and that he's part of the day. He's part of the day the music died, and that's it, man. What are you gonna do? Retell it from a different plane angle crash? I mean, I don't want to see that shit.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate here, and look, there's been 100 fucking movies about Elvis, and I'm not even exaggerating. There's got to be at least close to 100 movies about Elvis, at least a dozen movies about the Beatles at various points. I'm not saying. No, let me finish though, real quick. Let me finish real quick because I think you'll agree with me. But the difference here, and this is where it's similar to The Crow, is that La Bamba brought him to the forefront of of the non, people that were alive at that time, the kids like us at the time who weren't aware of Richie was, and outside of the Hispanic community. Like, that's what that movie did for his legend, as you just pointed out there, Paulie. So I think that's the problem you have here is you are going to be compared to that version of the movie no matter what. With Elvis and all these other guys, there's been so many of them. Like, every time an Elvis movie comes out, they don't bring up the Kurt Russell one or, some other one. Like, it does get brought up from time to time, but not as much. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I mean, look, we could, really break it down back and forth all we want. But then I was thinking the last 24 hours about the filmmakers, about the Mucho Mas Media and the indie stories they've been doing. They really have been doing kind of the stuff I've been professing on my channel, which is, all right, there's a wealth of stories that have not been told across America. And they've been bringing them high quality films. They've been bringing them to theaters and Netflix. You had was it Blue Miracle a couple of years ago? It's on Netflix. Really great family film about a Mexican orphanage, true story. Taught these kids how to fish. As something as silly as that. Great story, feel good. Then they did The Long Game, which came out this year, which I highly recommend. Another true story about these kids in South Texas that kind of broke the barriers there, color barriers in the late 50s. Great, uplifting, underdog. Everyone feels good. I don't know what. So my question is, there's so many more stories, guys, that you guys don't know about. Why are we doing this story again? There's no reason to do this story again.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
You know what that sounds like, Paulie? That sounds just like how every time they want to redo the Batman again, it's always got to be Batman the Joker. Why are they telling that story again and again and again? So I get what you're feeling, obviously, from a different angle. There's obviously, sounds like you're talking about something that has a plethora of story, and they're only going for the obvious safe one that's been done rather than explore what has yet to be explored.
Well, I'll be very specific what I'm talking about for the audience.
Sure,
what I'm talking
please.
About. I'm going to be very specific. I'm talking about U.S. American stories of people who happen to be Latino, right? That aren't stereotypical, that aren't crime and all that shit, because we get that already, right? What have we been clamoring about? We being kind of like, activists for change, for better portrayals, right? I've been doing this for decades. Positive portrayals, man. Like there's we got war heroes all the way up from the fucking Civil War all the way up until now. That's my thing. It's like, you guys are on a roll with these indie films. You guys are telling great stories. There's even musical legends you haven't even hit on. More musical legends. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. Listen, right now I'm really not liking this. I'm really upset. That's about it.
As you should be. You have a very valid point there.
At the same time, I hope with. Oh, sorry, Nick. Finish your point.
No. Paulie's absolutely right. We have this thing where we look at something, we portray it the same way rather than branch out, look at other avenues of a particular demographic. Especially when you look at the movie ticket sales for Latin audiences, a lot of them are very strong and show up to movies by the numbers. It's usually anywhere between 20 and 35%. For big weekends. The Latin audience would show up for those big time. I'm sure they probably would even do even higher numbers if there are movies like that are, once again, like a Latin war hero or a Latin lawyer or something like that.
Well, I mean,
you could do so many stories of that. We don't get those.
Yeah, you're in the Chicago area, right?
Yes, sir.
Listen, I know so many fucking stories because that's what I accumulated over the decades. There's that story of Hero Street, USA. It's a 1.5-block stretch outside of Chicago of real life World War I and World War II veterans. That more of those kids died in that 1.5-block stretch fighting our wars back in the day. They all got the medals and all that stuff. And what was their connective tissue? They all happened to be of Mexican descent. They were American kids. It's an incredible story. Do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that'd be great. That's untouched territory.
At the same time,
that story
again,
you know?
as long
Anyway,
as they
that's
stay
going
away
on.
from, yeah, my problem is what we read last night, Paulie, in the original article where it kept saying like they were going to emulate and try to do La Bamba all over again. It's like, don't do that. I don't care if you do another Richie story. Do it differently, though. Approach it differently. Like I said, make this the ultimate Mexican-American story about, you know, the legend that was Richie, but also the true story, the kid that had a dream, right? That in a world that, you know, I hate to say it because of what Price said earlier, but I hate, you know, in a world where normally a kid like him would be told, you can't be that. You live in a white country and that kind of shit.
I didn't mean that it shouldn't stay true to what his
that
story
being
was.
said, I think that the flavor of it is more important than anything, because if you try to recreate that flavor, you're not going to be able to do that. You're just going to come off as a knockoff Big Mac, right? You need to create your own new flavor, and there's tons of flavor in this story. And I'm not trying to be punny and Mexican about it, but I'm serious in that there's so many places you can get into and go that, you know, you and I discussed last night about the man himself, other things that he did in his career that this movie just didn't have the time to cover, that a mini series like the Selena one would do much more justice, I think, to Richie's life at this point.
You know,
it wouldn't trample on the
Selena
original one
miniseries-
so much.
Yeah, the Selena miniseries, there's a lot of good points to it. Like you said, bringing out those other elements of what she had to go through and the band had to go through. But that was very creatively controlled by the family. So there wasn't really a lot of like new conflict, which there is now, right? In real life, a lot of shit has come out about her affairs and this and that. But who owns this story now? Is Sony? That's a fucking bummer, dude. I hate that, man. What happened to the Valenzuela?
Well, they
estate,
they owned it, always owned it. But yeah,
I did not know that, dude. I mean, I'm really upset.
Technically, when it was made, Coca-Cola owned it, and then Sony bought him like 2 years after.
I want to clarify something. I didn't mean that if his story is that there was discrimination, that they should delete it from the story.
No, I know. Like my point. No, I get where you're coming from. Like the whole thing is like based around this idea. Like, no, I'm like, yeah, he
you
did.
know how sometimes
he did
they
have some of it, but it was more so just when he got to suburbia. Outside of that, he was the one like.
He actually was, because of his complexion, because he was a big, good-looking dude, and it was so confident. He himself didn't face a lot of racial discrimination.
No, and that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, they changed his name, but that was more because of recording purposes. Like, hey, they're not gonna.
And he was all for that, according to the movie, and I believe that story is true.
He didn't give a shit.
Because him and Bob got into it about it, but that was just because he's like, that's our dad's name. You can't just cut it in half, you know. Like, he's like, Steve was so gung ho American, he'd be all for anything that would make this work or happen, right?
Was,
like that's. Yeah.
My grandfather did the same thing. They changed. My grandfather changed our last name because him and his brother didn't want to get shit from the other American GIs when they went to go fight in the Pacific. That's exactly what my great uncle said. That shit happened a lot. They're like, you know what? Cool. I don't want to deal with that racial shit. I just want to play my music. Cool. You know, my fear is that they're gonna woke the fucking shit out of some of that stuff, and
that's my fear.
That has me worried too. Or
genuine concern.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And here's the problem. It's because the woke agenda has been so saturated into everything that even if you did a movie that portrayed like this guy's life exactly and legitimately, it's so hard to distinguish what is embedded for messaging versus what is just something legitimate now, because they've made it such a focus of everything.
They made the rot too deep with that stuff that you see it even when it's genuinely not there. And I know I have not personally have seen what's that movie that came out? Fury Road, but I'm just gonna say, just because conversation, there were a lot of people who really enjoyed Fury Road who you didn't expect to enjoy Fury Road. The usual suspects in this sphere did, and they thought it was going to be what they thought the trailer portrayed as. And for a lot of them, it seemed like it was not that type of movie, but yet that movie probably paid for the stigma of what we have been pushed on for the last several years. So whether it was or not, I won't personally say, but it seems like that movie definitely paid the price for that. Whether it was or it was not, it paid the
It
price
was
for it.
mediocre too.
Well, the more and more I think about it, guys, the more steamed I am because, the woke thing is one thing. What are they gonna do? Make them more flawed men? Thank you. Fuck you, Hollywood. Right? This was our movie that was so authentic and so entertaining that people like Tom, people all over the world love this fucking film. But don't get it twisted. It was authentic as fuck, and that's why Luis Valdez. That's why he directed the film, because he wrote this baby from the heart, from the corazón. Man, he did the research. I just don't see that happening again. Why would you fucking do that?
Well, now of all times, yeah.
It's like I don't even know Raza filmmakers that have the guts to even pull this off. You have to go outside, like you'd have to hire like a Kenneth Castillo or someone who's such an indie director that's Raza to pull it off authentically, right? They're already fucking Hollywoodizing it with this fucking writer. Okay, all right, you got your awards, you got your mamadas, but you're not I'm gonna sound a little fucking bigoted right now. You're not even Mexican, eh? What the fuck?
Yeah, that's something we brought up last night too. I'm kind of disappointed in, because look, I'm totally with you 110%. Right? Like the last thing I want this to be is a woke fest about like the plight of his family. No, it should be the opposite, right? Because if you look at the story, it's a very positive Mexican-American story, because they start from the bottom and they work their way up, right? First, Bob gets him out of the fucking fields, right? And gets him into an actual house, and then, and of course that was after whatever Steve had. We see, that's the other thing I want to get into is what kind of situation were they in before Steve died? Because I was under the impression that they were doing pretty good, right? He was in the military, he probably, they lived in a house, they all lived together. Bob still lived with them.
Well,
obviously,
they're a very patriotic family.
Yeah,
very patriotic family. So how are you going to portray that more? I mean, I have so many fucking questions, dude. I'm just like, I don't want to crash my fucking car right now. You know what I mean?
No, and we got to move on here soon anyway. But I want to thank you, Paulie, for bopping in, even though you're on the move.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate it, and I think this is something that you and I will probably talk about again soon anyway. But
I think the next thing that when we come and talk about this again is when they announce the director.
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, oh my God!
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I will kill.
Shit! And he'll write an original song for it too.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh!
We need to be more like Richie. Can we be more Richie?
We gotta have.
You just broke my brown heart, fuckers.
No, brother.
What role will Rachel Ziegler play in this film?
Oh, Donna!
I'm gonna crash my
Donna! Oh,
it's
Lord.
a good thing I'm home. I was gonna crash my car. Fucker.
Oh, don't. Yeah, if you can still, if you're not busy, feel free to bop in. We're gonna talk some Crow here because I think that segues nicely into that.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, we'll talk about this some more soon, brother.
Much love.
Let's try to get a hold of some people from the original movie. I'm serious. We need to get that all sorted out here.
Yeah.
Now's probably the time.
We'll figure it out. Let's get some.
We've already had half of them together. We just got to get the other half, and then we'll get it all together again.
Well, we could get some of the cast members, and we'll raise some money for their charity, and then we can say, "Hey, how do you feel about this film, assholes?"
Oh man, yeah, we'll catch them at the end with that. All right, thank you, Paulie. Love you, brother.
Bye, Paulie.
Love you guys.
Bye, Paulie.
Tom, before you move on,
care.
one final comment because I
sure.
know how to explain what I'm thinking. Like what I'm thinking. You remember the Elvis movie that came out in recent years?
Tom Hanks.
Yes. Although I didn't hate it, I know what you're talking about, kind of.
He was kind of, and I don't know if this is a good word to say, kind of a pussy in this movie. Meaning Elvis that you see, he was badass. But in this movie, he's always like a miserable little shit where he's always whining. And that's what I don't want them to do to Richie Valens with La Bamba, in addition to all of the kind of agendas that they want to do with racism, which will be misplaced. Even if he did go through racism, it'll be done in a way that's not nuanced and not thoughtful.
I'm going to say something unpopular about the Elvis movie, probably.
I
didn't hate it. And I fucking hate Baz Luhrmann. Fucking hate him. I hate him because I like because he's so goddamn. I don't know how to put this. I never watched Moulin Rouge because I know I'd probably like it if I saw it, but I hate jukebox musicals, and I hate what he did to Romeo and Juliet. Okay, like it's this weird, twisted, it's like that relationship with that one chick you can't fucking stand, but the sex is great. That's basically Baz Luhrmann. Like you can't fucking stand her. It's like as soon as she starts talking, you shut the fuck up and leave, please. But the sex is so goddamn amazing. That's why you put up with her. Anyway, like, so I get to watch Elvis, and I thought I was going to fucking hate this movie. The only parts I disliked is when they bring in the modern bullshit. Like, remixing the songs with like modern sounding songs.
But there's also like he walks out and he's like, well, he seems like he's black, but he's white. What are
that kind of shit I hated too.
Although, so Tom, you hate fucked Elvis?
I hate fucked Elvis, but what I liked about the movie, and this is what makes me feel dirty about it, is it's the first time ever in a movie where we've actually gotten to see Colonel Tom Parker the way he actually fucking was. We actually get to see him as the piece of shit that he was. And not only that, Tom Hanks impressed the fuck out of me, because ever since Forrest Gump, I ain't been able to see him as anything but Forrest Gump, pretty much. It's like, even when he played Walt Disney, I'm like, that ain't Walt Disney, it's Tom Hanks. Right? Like, it's like, he's not even trying to do a voice. He's barely doing it. Like, but when he plays Colonel, I don't know what he did to do that. It wasn't just the makeup. He transformed into Colonel Tom Parker in that movie.
It was pretty good acting. I agree with you.
And that's what saved the movie for me, because we have never, ever, and if you watch any movies before with Tom, they gloss over everything that guy did. And that's probably why Elvis looks like such a pussy in this movie. And that's why I'll defend it, Price, because this movie was telling us the side of Elvis we never got to see. And that was the controlling bastard that Colonel Tom Parker was, and the way he damned Elvis basically to America, because his ass was afraid he was going to get arrested if he went overseas.
I agreed with all of that.
And that's a true fucking story. And that's the sad facts of it all.
Agree with everything that you're saying. Everything that you said is true. But I still think that Elvis, sure, sometimes things aren't 100% one way or another. Yes, that guy was controlling. Yes, it was a movie that showed that Tom Parker was a jerk. I agree with everything you said. Elvis in real life wasn't that much of a pussy. Even if he had a manager that was like taking advantage of him, Elvis would walk around. There would be lazy ladies all day, and he how do I say this nicely on your channel? He did a lot of things with the ladies, and I don't think in this movie you wouldn't know that he hung out with a lot of ladies. You'd think that he was just some little.
This was actually the
seed.
I agree with you for the most part. Other than this was the first movie to actually address, I think, up until that new Priscilla movie, the real age of some of these girls.
He used to sow his royal oats, as they say in comic.
Everybody knows that Elvis liked his young women. Okay, like I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying it. And I mean by the age of young, yes, young. Anyway, not like kids, but we all know that Priscilla was pretty.
He birthed many children.
That too. Well, that's the rumor, but none have actually been found yet. Well, none have actually been found yet, because there's been several cases where people have come forward. There's even that fucking movie with Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner, where it's kind of based on that whole idea, because there was a bunch of those people that came out claiming after he died, claiming they were the kid of Elvis, and they all got DNA tests and not a single one of them matched. But in that movie, they claimed there was 2 that come up inconclusive.
I mean,
and it was those 2.
My mind.
I don't know if you've seen that movie, 10,000 Miles to Graceland, I think it's called.
Maybe Elvis just always wore rubbers. I don't know.
I don't know.
It would shock me. I wouldn't bet my house on it, but who knows?
I'm not saying he doesn't. I mean,
that's Elvis. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, but we haven't found him yet. That's the thing. Paulie? Yeah, still pissed. All right, well, 6 sent us a pooper sticker. I don't know if she's pissed or if she's just sending us a pooper sticker. But we're glad to see you, 6. Good evening. Hopefully you're doing 3,000 Miles to Graceland. I knew it was something like that. Thank you, Shadow Chaser.
There you go. It was a classic.
That's the one. It was an all right movie. It was pretty good. It's different. You actually get to see Kevin Costner as a bad guy in it, which is a rarity.
Oh, Courtney Cox was really hot in that movie.
Courtney Cox. Her character drove me nuts though. That's the one
Yeah,
thing.
no,
I
no, the character, none of the character. Just she looked,
and it's just
really
the character choices, right? It's not her. It's the character
No.
choices, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because she's got this kid, and we're like, I'm sitting here watching this. I'm like, she's the world's worst fucking mother.
Yeah.
Like the world's worst mother. Like the only way she could be worse is if she kills the kid, right? Like at this point, like that's it. She fucking leaves him with a criminal. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you don't know him from Henry, and you're leaving him. You're fucking insane. I mean, at least later on, I think we found out that she already knew the yeah, anyway. But anyway.
Yeah.
That being said, let's get into more
No
insane
spoilers.
shit. Let's get into more insane shit than anything, because this just gets funnier and fucking funnier by the minute. As somebody who's a major Crow fan, and I don't think you guys have really had a chance to talk with me about this yet, because this all happened in the
No,
last
I
few
didn't
days.
see
Because
this.
I saw the film. I don't know who else has seen it here.
Nope.
I mean, it just makes me think of South Park. You know, the goth kids in South Park. And they're a parody, but they're also legit because they don't try. They don't care. They're so, like, just don't give a shit. And this looks like it's somebody trying way too hard to be goth.
You know what I always found funny about the goth and the emo kids, CC? Is they all act like they're trying to be nonconformist while all looking the same.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell one from the other. They all have the same white face, black mascara and eye paint,
Yeah.
and black fucking lipstick, looking like the Crow in a trench coat. Couldn't tell which one was a male or a female.
I was
They all got-
raised by goths in college, and when I saw this, no, I'm serious. Like I had some like I had some like you know I was like the blonde girl in the Munsters in that way. It's like I'm weird, but I'm surrounded by all these really weird people. When I saw the first image of this new Crow, my first thought was, that's Jared Leto's Joker. My second thought was, that's what we'd call in college a tryhard. And I was just like, I'm not even going to bother putting my money down on this
That's
stuff.
sad part is that's the least of this film's problems. Like, am I the only one here who's seen it?
Probably.
Sadly, I watched it.
I was gonna say, I think you did too, Nick. Yeah.
I wanted to, but I didn't get a chance.
No one wants to watch this. They watch it because they're put in a position in their life where they feel obligated. This is not something you should. This movie is a violation of movie rights, of the Crow rights, of Brandon Lee, of good movies. Remember what I said last week on TNT? I don't care what your opinion is on heaven or hell. You just better hope that there is a hell so someone pays for green lighting this movie. And I stand by that statement.
Well, in my research, I'm going through this, and my God, man, we went through almost 2 decades to get here, right?
Yeah.
2 decades. And at one
hit.
point, well, there was one point where I think one semi-decent version could have emerged from this. And I know I brought up DMX earlier. Him and Eminem were supposed to be in a version of this at one point.
Oh, jeez. Jason Momoa.
We almost got Eminem Crow. Anyway, I think the only one that had any real chance and was actually being made with any real passion fell apart because of that passion, and that was the Jason Momoa version.
Really? Because I thought Jason Momoa
I do.
he's too huge to be the Crow.
He is,
The Crow's like
but
lanky. Yeah.
he was going to be playing Eric Draven, but I think they were going to do a bit of a different take on it, because if I remember right, and I've been looking for it and I haven't been able to find it again. Although Andre, I think, knows somebody who had the script, because we were talking about it earlier to them. We're doing a bunch of research while we're getting this video out. I mean, we're trying to get it out as fast as we're doing the research. And I could have swore that the initial synopsis of his version of the Crow was he was going to be a cop who was murdered. So he's not like the same exact Crow. I mean, even though he may have been named Eric Draven, it wasn't going to be the retelling of the... They were going to do their best to pay homage while also doing their own thing. And it was also going to be called The Crow Reborn. So it was almost being presented as a kind of semi-sequel, reboot-quel instead of a remake, too, was my understanding.
Yeah, we were talking before the show started that, you know, this concept really would be better served as an anthology set in different eras with vastly different characters and not just Eric Draven over and over again or variants thereof. And I was saying that now is not the time because of the girl boss deluge, but there was a time probably about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where if they'd done the Crow, different story, different character, but the Crow was a girl, it would have been perfect. it would have been great, right? Or
Yeah,
at least a
and
great concept. But now that's out the window.
in full disclosure, I haven't read beyond the original version, but I do know that there are other crows. Like there's been other crows that, you know. So like, yeah, I'm with you on that. And in fact, I said the best route to go would have been the Western version with the cowboy crow.
Right.
First, to kind of give people the idea, this is what we're doing. We're not going to remake the original Crow, but what we're going to do is this, you know, we're just going to keep it.
Should have not been Eric Draven.
Yeah.
No, should not have been. Leave that story alone. That story is done. Leave it alone. It's like this is why I was like making such connections to the La Bamba remake. Like, you don't just stop. It's that story is told. If you want to tell a story about another Mexican American singer or some other obscure artist or something that's adjacent or from that fine, but leave the Crow, leave Eric Draven alone. That is I hate to sound it like so weird about it, but that's Brandon Lee's character forever. No one else can take it. It's done. And especially it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, we're going to recast because, you know, Tony Stark's really popular. No. Brandon Lee died playing that guy, and he's not
people gotten cursed for trying to make that movie with the Eric Draven character. There's a reason now they're paying the actual price because they wouldn't just let it go. It wasn't clear that they got the hint several times when things are going wrong. I think they actually like go into like pre-production with the Momoa one a little bit.
It did,
went wrong. Like,
well, he left because they kept changing the script. Him and the director walked finally. But yeah, they even had screen tests and got heavy into pre-production on that. But finally, Momoa's just cut ties with it all because it just wasn't what he signed up for, basically. Yeah, I was actually, while you guys were talking, I was just looking for, because the video itself has been taken down that as far as I know, I haven't been able to come across it again. But I did have images from Momoa's Crow here, but I'm trying to find them. I had them in my collection. I got so much shit here.
I thought there was one with him like a big cowboy hat on or something. Or maybe I'm just...
not that I know of. This was from the test footage here. So these are images from the test footage.
Maybe it was like concept art or something I was saying.
Maybe. Well, I think they were also going to have there's the skull cowboy crow that kind of guides the crows.
Yeah.
So maybe that character was going to be in it too, because that character was going to be in the original Crow, but it cut it out because it looked like shit. But yeah. And I had another picture here, but I'm not finding it. But you can't really see Momoa's face in the other picture. It's the director in front of him. But yeah, no, I thought that this probably was one of the better routes to go if they were going to go, or at least had the most chance or the most promise. But once things started getting shifted and changing, that's when Momoa and the director walked. So if anything, that just tells you that the quality went out the window and what they had signed up for had no longer been, worth making, or at least what they felt was going to live up to the original in any way, shape, or form. But they were like coming into this with complete and utter respect for the original. That was the point I was trying to make here. But, getting back to this, this story, the original director, Alex Proyas. Oh, I said Proyas. Who directed the original, came out and started roasting the remake on his Facebook.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
He'd been pretty vocal about it for a long time, how much he was against this happening too, which I'm glad to see, because nowadays everyone's so busy saying face because they want the next opportunity. They can't say anything bad. Everyone wants to say everything's good about everything at all times. That's great to see. I don't know how much skin in the game he still has to this day, so I don't know when he last directed something, but it's nice to finally hear someone saying something that sounds like genuine truth instead of just the typical scripted response.
6 found the pic I was looking for here. That's one of the one that Jason Momoa put out originally.
Yeah, why?
I thought it might have had a shot, but that's just my opinion on that. So yeah, we have this now where Alex come out and he said, I thought the remake was cynical cash grab, not much cash to grab, it seems. Oh,
womp, 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 womp.
Yeah. Says the review we've all been waiting for. It's a bit like flogging a dead horse now. I think I'll stop after this until another funny one comes along, he says.
Wow.
Because he was sharing negative reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't get any joy from seeing negativity about any filmmaker's work, Price wrote on social media in March, while pointing out the negative likes on Reboot's trailer. I'm certainly certain the cast and crew really had good intentions, as we all do on any film, so it pains me to say any more on this topic, but I think the fans' response speaks volumes. So this is when the trailer originally came out. The Crow is not just a movie. Brandon Lee died making it, and it finished as a testament to his brilliance and tragic loss. It's his legacy. That's how it should remain. Yeah, and I just saw an interview where he was talking about that, and I'll get to that in a minute. He goes, instead, we want to chart our own course almost as, or, no, this is, Reboot's co-script. Okay, this is somebody else now. Anyway. So, yeah, well, you were going to say something there, Scribe?
No, I was just agreeing. It's just like this is one of those things you just can't touch. You can't remake it. It's kind of like Psycho. Like the only good thing that this movie does is mean that The Crow will never be remade again. And I guess that protects Brandon Lee's legacy.
Probably.
Yeah,
Never say never, but maybe not in the next few years.
Yeah,
because we know one thing: a remake can bomb hard, and they'll still think that they try it again somehow and magically work.
Well, at least make them think twice.
Series about it. They'll do something else, but like 5 years from now, they'll be like, "Oh, I have a idea for a series for one of those streamers," and then they'll do.
You know, if anything, they should have done a movie about the making of the movie.
That would have been cool. I would. I would have been over the moon about that.
Because
the guy, the guy's doing the thing.
Obvious.
The guy's doing the Thing documentary that you're promoting. They should look at that. That'd be a great.
Well, no, I mean an actual biopic type movie, like they did with Psycho, with the one with Hitchcock,
like with the Godfather
and Godfather with the Offer, exactly. Because, like, I mean, that's what I was getting to earlier. Is probably I saw this. It's not that old of an interview with him, but it was just a clip about where he's talking about the movie, and he was talking about how they weren't going to finish the original film.
Right.
He's like, when Brandon died, we thought we were done. He's like, as far as I was concerned, there was no real reason to finish it, but his family begged us. They're like, no, you have to finish the movie for Brandon. Considering how far along they got there, like, you know, and I mean, considering how his dad died, you know, and what they did to that film. I mean, at least Brandon's legacy was left on a much better note. And I mean, it is, Andre put it as best as anybody has to this point. It is literally Brandon Lee's tomb, right? It is the way we visit him. It is the way we, celebrate him. And, you know, he was in this, he's in that pantheon of like, you know, like the great musicians that die too young. You know, it's the same.
He's a Richie Valens.
Yeah, he's a Richie Valens. He's a Jim Morrison. He's a whoever you insert here. You know, in that sense. But this movie now, you know, is so much him that you can't really revisit this again. You can't go back. So, yeah, Nick and I think agree on that. The movie is shit beyond the fact that it's just a Crow remake. Dude, that's the other problem.
They absolutely the way they slow down the love story and they expand upon it was absolutely unnecessary. Then they brought in that stupid Kronos character with that whole in between purgatory thing. Was that solution? And then
he's supposed to be like the skull cowboy, but
I know, but still absolutely not needed. And then the Eric Draven personality. We went from Brandon Lee, who obviously suffered this really terrible tragedy, but was still motivated by love and revenge to go get after, those who killed his girlfriend. And this guy, he's just wimpy. He's like, trust me, like, it's like he drank like a freaking ocean of soy, and then they called him the Crow. Straight up. I was like, this guy is not likable. And this movie is more like, it's almost like a Zack Snyder movie. Like, it goes so dour and like, it's very bring you down thing. There's not anything uplifting. Yeah, the original Crow is dark, but there's still a very energetic feel to it. And when you saw him get revenge on those bad guys, it felt awesome. You felt like you were living vicariously through him, cheering him on, getting revenge. And he also had awesome supporting characters to kind of have him lean on, to kind of maintain what was left of his humility. He doesn't have that here. He's just absolutely unlikable from beginning to end. And then they made them both drug addicts. Oh man, so stupid. Yeah,
The thing about
everything about. Go ahead.
I was going to say the thing about the first. I was trying to think about like what was the contrast between these two that made the first one so good, and that's that the first one was an absolute tragedy because I was watching a Desparo review of, or at least a commentary on, and he was talking about, I saw the trailer and the guy gets like shot up and he's immortal. So if he's immortal, where's the suspense in this? There's no suspense in this whatsoever. I started thinking like, yeah, well, he was immortal in the first one, but the thing that drove the first one was you were there to see what happened to him and his girlfriend that drove him to this.
But he still did have a weakness, Scribe. He had the actual crow. That
I know. Well, I know, but I was going to say is that he was a tragic character. But the thing was he wasn't self-pitying.
Nope.
That was the thing that I was like, is like he accepted the fact that this is his fate and that he's here to do a thing, and it was very sad. He was a very, obviously depressed character and everything, but he wasn't like reveling in his self-pitiableness or anything. And that's what
not like he is in the comic.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Price has to run real quick before we finish that thought. Price, anything you want to plug on your way out the door?
Yeah, I did a review for the movie Blink Twice, which is pretty good on my main channel. And
you only did it once. We didn't have to hear two of them.
And then the other thing is tonight at 11:45 p.m. there's the Night Owl on my live channel. So hopefully people will check it out. As usual, thanks for having me on. And I have to run, but I'll see you guys soon.
Of course. Take care, Price.
Bye.
I got to pull out too. So
okay, you're oh shit, yeah, it is already that late. Fuck. All right, well, brother, I'm gonna try to bop on with you. I'll send everybody.
That's fine. That's fine.
Way, but,
you're good.
True Grit tonight on Toxic Tuesday. So head on over to Nick Weiser's after the show.
Yes, True Grit, John Wayne, and keep bragging on this movie. That's not The Crow because it should have never been made. Thanks for having me. It's been fun. I hope to see a lot of you in less than a half hour. Thank you.
Bye, Nick.
Excellent. All right. And so no, you're 100% right, Scribe, in the points you were just making about it too. And there is an uplifting note to the film, right? It isn't about
there's
so
hope.
much.
There's a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And that's the light in the darkness is the thing. Yep. Despite everything else going on, it still had that element of inspiration and
and that hope is kind of in Sarah, right? Like she's the future.
Yes, Sarah, and trying to redeem her mother and everything else is that there's an element of his life that still has some promise to it that he can try to help along while still trying to tie up the loose ends of what happened to him and his girlfriend.
Exactly. And then giving some closure also to Ernie Hudson's character. I just forgot the cop's name. But anyhow, and not only that, he also gave him the ability to see, what Shelley had gone through and all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, here's another one that Alex put out. I love how enraged this critic gets. Is that a thumbs down? Maybe they can lend their DCPs to film schools for classes on how not to make a movie. The theaters sure won't need them after next weekend.
Oh,
and this one really cracked me up here. This was funny. David J. Shaw, who was I believe he was one of the writers he did the rewrite, I believe, or he wrote one of the sequels as well. He's a prolific writer. Him and Prowess were marked safe from seeing The Crow today. So yeah, he was having a field day with this. The original director has stopped, or at least anytime they've talked about the remakes, he's come out and said this is a dumb idea. It's not going to work for all the reasons we just said, basically in so many words. And I mean, he's getting up there in age now, but I mean, he knocked this movie out of the park. He was a very visionary guy. He also did Dark City.
Great.
And I mean, The Crow is just one of those films that I said this the other day too, in a few other places as well, but it bears repeating that. I mean, it's in its own world, right? Like, I mean, it reminded me of films like Batman and to an extent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, although some of that was filmed in actual locations. But the reason I bring up Batman and Dick Tracy specifically is because those movies were almost 100% either, set or a matte painting or a miniature or both or a mixture of. And it feels like its own unique world, right? Like it's created its own world, and it's just amazing. And this remake just has none of that. It has none of the heart. It has none of the iconography. The soundtrack is horrible. I don't even remember one song off it. Yeah,
the sound. I love the soundtrack. I got that whole thing.
No, I mean the soundtrack of the new one. I mean is horrible.
Oh, the new one. Oh yeah, no, couldn't tell you. But yeah, the original's great.
Yeah, I mean this is a movie you wait till streaming. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if they had just made it as another follow-up sequel to like any of the old sequels, I don't think anybody would have cared. And the only thing I would have said you had to change, well, yeah, literally. But I mean, I don't think that it wouldn't be getting the vitriol it's getting. I think I don't know if it would have been necessarily made any money in the box office. I mean, it would have been better to just make it straight to streaming. But all they had to do is make it to where it's not Eric Draven, right? Yep. And the one mistake I say the movie makes is you have them in rehab already. What you should have done is had them in rehab, get better, and then jump a year ahead where they've been together for about a year to where you actually feel like they have a relationship. Because that's one of my biggest complaints about this movie is you barely get to know Eric and Shelley. There's nothing to really like about these people. They're still junkies when they leave. Yeah. Like, you know, I mean, nothing was cured. Nothing was changed. Nothing, you know.
You have to feel there's something that was lost, and all you have is two people who have like dead-ended their lives already. So there, in the original, there was like, you know, Shelley was beautiful, and they were in love, and they had plans, and they were going to get married.
Well, they were good people, right?
And they were good, right? They took care of Sarah and everything. They were good people. They were genuinely good people who got completely and absolutely decimated by these living demons, effectively.
And they kind of tried to show that a little bit in this movie because they have like this scene here where they're hanging out with a bunch of bohemian people getting fucked up in this fucking woods. It's like, you're wanted by these people. What are you doing hanging out with other people? I would be
and that haircut. What the fuck?
I know. I don't know what chick he stole that haircut from, but
that is a fail mullet. That's a fullet.
That is something else.
Looks about as fake as AI.
Yeah, it is.
Oh man,
something else.
Just a note to future directors of films: covering your character in tattoos all over the place does not make him edgy or cool. I'm sorry.
No, and that's the other problem is it's too much like Joker. But I mean, I never thought. Look, I thought the last two Crows didn't look all that great, but I never thought we'd get a downgrade from this.
Exactly. I mean, it looks like a fan from a Kiss concert. What the hell?
And I actually kind of like this movie. This one, Salvation isn't bad. I've
never seen it.
And I have like a love-hate relationship with City of Angels because City of Angels is the only one that's a direct sequel to the original film.
Right.
And the only reason I don't hate that is because I mean there is a good movie in there, but Harvey Weinstein got his grubby paws on it and cut it into this horrible mess. But it is what it is at the end of the day. I think it's just something that was best left alone. And
it will be.
It's
now
a part of the
10,
90s.
20 years.
And I think it's ironic that I think the last film came out in like 2000 or something like that. No, it was a little later than that. The Edward Furlong one did. But most people hate that one. Like of all the ones in this list here, like that's the only one the fans really hate, like unanimously, is the Edward Furlong one.
Yeah. He's just such a sad character in real life to begin with.
Well, it was a piss poor film altogether.
Yeah. It's just and
at least the other ones had something to work with, right? Like
was this one at least partially fueled by rights retention by any chance? Do we know?
No, I don't think so. I thought so at first, but as the deeper I looked into it, it just seems more and more like it was just greed. Right. Because even Edward Pressman, the guy who got the original producer who got it off the ground to begin with back in the day, very famous, well-known producer, he even had to sue some people involved with like this thing has been through. I think we're gonna have a follow-up video to our follow-up video at some point because The Crow has such a tumultuous background, even beyond the first film, right? Like the first film had its own issues with the Brandon Lee stuff and all that kind of stuff. Once you get into the Weinstein business and everything else in the sequels, it is And then you get into the rights issues. Even Weinstein sued at one point over issues in like 2009. So this movie has the franchise, I should say, the IP has just been in complete and utter a mess for the last 20, 30 years or whatever. So like, yeah, 20 years mainly. So yeah. I mean, there's a story to be told there. It just depends on how interested you're in it. We got some other things we may need to talk about here. Like Adam Wolford says, the cowboy name is Born Daddy. There's a Japanese girl that came back after being killed by Yakuza. Yep. And there was a magic card guy. Yeah, see, there's plenty of... and didn't they kind of use the magic card guy as kind of a basis for the one in the second film, I think, because he does the thing with the magic and the cards, but maybe I'm wrong. It may have came after. Like I said, I'm not real familiar with the other spin-off Crow stories, so I apologize, but yeah.
It's best as an anthology. It should never have been a remake.
Yeah. Dark Saber Force sends in a member chat for back when and says back then the best actress for female Crow would have been Fairuza Balk. I agree. From The Craft and Waterboy, she had look and would have easily fit. I mean, honestly, back then, yes, in the 90s, early 2000s, probably.
I don't know.
There's a few ways you could have went with it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure who I would have. You know who would have made a great Crow if she hadn't become Elektra? I mean, it has to be somebody that can pull off a little bit of athleticism for the action stuff. Fairuza Balk doesn't really strike me as... I mean, maybe she could have toned up for it. I don't know, maybe.
And then Action Com asks about Rob Zombie's Crow. Oh, we dodged a bullet there.
Oh,
the one that obviously Brandon didn't, sadly.
Oh, oof, dude, too soon. Too soon.
No, that was going to be I think anybody who ever thought to give Rob Zombie any money after, his couple of decent films he made has regretted it ever since. And I think
Devil's Rejects was great, and then everything stopped.
Yeah, Halloween 2 was an utter mess. I mean, at least Halloween 1, I would say, okay, you did something different for the first hour, and then you just... But whatever. I mean, if it was like this other weird thing, maybe, but yeah, I don't even want to get started on that. But yeah, I agree with you. House of a Thousand Corpses is okay. Devil's Rejects is obviously his best movie he's ever going to make.
Yes. Yeah. Now, House of a Thousand Corpses was a nice grindhouse throwback kind of thing. And Devil's Rejects was legitimately a decent movie overall, I thought. It was really
I still haven't seen the third one yet.
No, I bought a copy on discount at the video store or something. I fell asleep watching it. Literally.
Oh, man.
It was really like...
I got it real cheap.
From Hell. Yeah,
because it was 4K and I saw it for like $9. I think it was on Black Friday. I'm like, fuck it.
It's bad. Yeah. Devil's Rejects.
Three from Hell.
Yeah, Three from Hell is no good.
But yeah, no, Action Com, if we get into that video that I'm talking about, that'll definitely be one of the chapters probably. But you guys have to make that happen. So that means you got to watch the next video that's coming out. Make sure you've watched the video that's already been out and say something in the comments. So I don't think Andre's going to mention it in the video.
Share.
Yeah, share and mention it. Say, we want a full documentary on these. That'd be great. And we'll do it, but we got to know that you guys are going to watch it. Because I've had a hard enough time convincing Andre, because this is a blind spot for Andre when it comes to Midnight's Edge. Because when we're talking like nitty gritty OG, what Midnight's Edge is all about, The Crow fits right in. And that's where I had a fucking aneurysm when he told me, he's like, I have never really been that big of a fan. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, dude, if there was a movie made for you, that's it. Like, I can't believe there's a Norwegian alive who doesn't have a copy of that movie. Right? Like,
good
like
Lord,
it feels
really?
like a European, like goth, the music, everything. Like,
especially with Andre's affinity for the Punisher. I mean, that falls
exactly
right that same lane. Like, what?
That's my point. Is it fits right in between the Punisher and Judge Dredd. If there was anything that went and wedged right in between there, it's the Crow.
Yeah, if you want a legit supernatural Punisher that's in line with like Ghost Rider and all that kind of, you can't get much.
Exactly, and that's what Midnight's Edge started as the more darker characters. So I've kind of gotten him back on the road of checking it out. I think I've gotten him into a new found respect for the Crow. So maybe
what? Okay, in the chat, CC's making some confessions that just shock me.
What? What'd he say?
Shock me.
Say it on the show.
I have not seen the original Crow or La Bamba.
I know, look at this. Look at this. Now,
I mean, I've seen a lot of
I can
movies. There was
understand
a
La
point
Bamba, but
at-
how the fuck have you not seen The Crow?
I don't know. There was a point at which I rented every movie off the shelf of the video store.
I just don't know how you were alive in the 1990s and not seen The Crow. It's just
I kept overlooking it. I don't know.
Man, I was so there. I got the poster.
I mean, the soundtrack alone, I think, would have turned you on to it.
Yeah,
I absolutely love Dark City. I mean, it probably is a movie I should.
Oh, you probably will.
That I would
actually.
love.
Oh
Yeah.
man, you got to see it.
You hear that soundtrack alone, you'll be in love, brother. Trust me.
Yeah.
You got The
Yeah.
Cure. You got fucking STP, man. I mean, shit. The sequel's got a soundtrack that's 10 times better than the movie.
Yeah, man, Pantera's in there. I think it's For Love Not Lisa or something. Yeah, there's some great stuff in there. Great fucking soundtrack.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
A dumb oversight on my part. I got to get on it.
La Bamba's one you should see too, just because of the historical, and you're a music person, so yeah.
Yeah.
That's a funner movie, sad ending, but The Crow is one that I think you'll really, really dig. I think that's right up your alley. Like, I mean, especially anybody who's into like anime type stuff, you can definitely tell it has some kind of a little bit of that kind of influence in it too, in a way, especially in the art, the original art, I would say. And like it almost has like a manga kind of indie feel to it.
I do have good internet here, so I can probably actually watch it.
Do it.
Well, yeah.
Can.
It has been put out in 4K, and it is a very nice transfer. I mean, I don't think you give a shit, but
yeah. Well, I've got a 1440 screen. I don't have a 4K screen.
Oh, there you go. See,
so I give 2Ks of a shit.
You give 2Ks of a shit. Okay.
Yeah.
No, the original film is a fucking masterpiece. Especially if you love like revenge-o-matic movies, like Death Wish or like you said, The Punisher. Scribe, that's a good one too. That.
Yeah.
Like Ghost Rider. Yeah. Definitely. If you like any of those, you'll probably dig it. And it has a cool 90s aesthetic style to it. Like it is its own world. They do a beautiful job on that first movie. Second movie actually has really excellent production value. You can really see the money put into the second film. Just too bad the movie itself wasn't better. But the people like the producer's cut. They're the original director's cut. I mean, not producer's cut. Adam Wolford says, oh, here we go. City of Angels was a mix of Eric and Ash. Ash is a magician. That's what I thought. Okay. And also there was a crow that was killed by Hell's Angels and came back and fought an actual demon biker summoned. Oh, see, there's another one you could have gone down. And that would have really kind of played into. Maybe I wonder if that was maybe the one they were using more for influence for Jason Momoa's. See, because his was felt like kind of like a biker dude kind of thing, yeah. And I think he was supposed to be a cop.
I like the fact the first one was, in relative terms, grounded, and that the supernatural stuff was, not overwhelming. That there wasn't a whole lot. I like that it like felt a little bit. For those of you role playing fans in the audience, The Crow fits, especially the aesthetic fits in well with the whole World of Darkness aesthetic from White Wolf Games. And that you could just almost see this happening in the real world, or just askance to the real world in a way. It kind of felt like that. I'm afraid I have to be splitting, Tom.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up anyway. Thank you, Adam, for the $10. Appreciate it, brother. And yeah, I think you're right, Scribe. I think we're all kind of on the same page here. Like the best way to go forward would have been an anthology type crows where we get a bunch of different types of crows. I mean, yeah, like. That's what I like about the third film is that it's an interesting story compared. It's not trying to remake the original film, right? It's a guy who was convicted of murdering his girlfriend, which he didn't, and he goes gets fried. So then it's like a mystery, right? Like he has to go and figure out when he gets back who actually did it and all that shit. So it's actually kind of interesting, I mean, yeah, it's a cheap '90s Miramax film or Dimension film, but still,
right? It tried.
Anyway,
tried to do something different.
Yeah, what do you got coming up?
Well, let's see. I am what am I doing? Oh yeah, Thursday. I'm doing my usual show at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. TED Excellence. I think I found one that deals with the question of democracy. Is it still valid? We're going to find out from TEDx, everybody, with TEDx Bingo. Just looking forward to that. I'm also looking to get don't want to make promises I can't keep quite yet, but I'm trying to get a special guest to talk about TV writing in Hollywood, etc. You might be able to guess who I might be trying to get on with me for that one. Specifically, a
Script
presentation.
Dr. Chatto.
Yeah, anyway, but yeah, it deals with a presentation given by the one and only Gina Davis, telling us about how you should write TV scripts in Hollywood. And
is this when she got crazy and was talking all her nonsensical shit?
Yes. And so at some time in the near future, hopefully I'll be doing a tandem show looking at that. And then, as always, I got my Sunday stream, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, where I take a look at the news of the week, and my ongoing project, Living on Borrowed Crime, where I'm talking to true crime content creators about their work and the genre in discussions and interviews. And that is all I currently have to plug. Thank you for having me on.
I think it's an interview 6. I think it's just a video from that period is what he's talking about.
No, it's actually a panel discussion presentation she gave on TV writing, and I haven't watched it yet. I'm waiting to have my my wingman with me to get a professional perspective.
There you go. And other than that, let's see here. We got Action Comic sends in another 10. Thank you so much, Action Comic. Says Rob Zombie's Crow was about a guy who witnessed a murder and got locked in an insane asylum because he turned comatose. The idea was his spirit died. The Crow brought the spirit back. Who would it have? Who thought it would have worked? Or
yeah,
think? I'm not sure what you're asking at the end there. Would it have worked? Maybe is what I think he means.
For anybody.
Maybe, but I'm just Rob Zombie's. It would have been stuck with a bunch of his songs in it, and his wife would have been in it.
Box office poison.
Exactly. That's the problem. Like, this idea with a different director, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Why not?
But with Rob Zombie,
like the concept, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think is interesting is you can go a bunch of different directions with this Crow thing, right? Like it don't always have to be the same damn thing. And that's what the one thing they did do successfully in the sequels, as far as I was concerned, that were any good. But
for those of you in the chat that might be Korean TV fans, that kind of sounds slightly like the plot to Uncanny Counter, but I won't go any further than that.
Well, there you go. And with that, CC, we're going to get some karaoke this week because I think you said your internet's pretty good.
Yeah, I got internet and electricity. Finally.
Woo! Wow.
Maybe we'll have to do a surprise early okie just to get us back into so we're not so rusty.
That's a possibility.
Maybe if I finish this video tonight.
Probably not tonight because
right.
I just got set up and shit's all kind of messed up.
Sounds good.
But
all right,
after tonight.
Well, tomorrow's kind of packed, but we'll see. Maybe if we get done with physical media early, we'll do something. But all right, kids, thank you for
Friday
being
for
here.
Sure.
Yeah, so Friday we're finally getting back to Okie season 12, whatever we're doing. I don't know.
Season 3.
Whatever. With that, take care of yourselves. Sadie really wants out. She's been a good girl. So see you guys. Hit the like button. Don't forget to check and make sure you're subscribed and all that business. Make sure you subscribe to all these guys and Nick and all that stuff. Bye.